Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday. Welcome back to another fantastic debate review. Once again, joined by the immortal, the shiny-headed, the I don't know. I'm
Mortal,
struggling for.
I wish. Yeah, no,
Well, I
I'm
mean,
very.
you just had that debate yesterday where you just kind of it was a trip. It was interesting. I did enjoy how they did the poll in the chat as to who was everyone's favorite debater, and you were 1% shy of the overwhelming
Yeah.
digital victory.
Look, I thought it was 60%. I wasn't paying
It
attention, to
was
be honest with
68%.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And I
And
really mucked up my introduction as well, which is thing. No, I definitely have places to improve. I definitely do. But thank you. I really appreciate it. I thought that went really well. It was a really good debate. Yeah, I thought it was a really good debate. Yeah. Thank you. I didn't know
yeah.
you saw it. I've been everywhere yesterday. I did the debate, then the after show, and then I appeared on the wavelength later on because Justin needed somebody to help him out. So yeah, I was over there as well. So your big day yesterday, everything happening.
Hell yeah. Zooming around, zooming around. Yeah, I actually
Yeah.
I did catch the debate, and I was in the after show briefly. I get tired late at night. It's that waking up crazy early thing. It's rough. But today we have a another epic debate. It's part two actually. Anybody who hasn't
Here's
seen
the
part
part
one,
two.
yeah, part one's over on Mark's channel because we go back and forth from week to week. That's linked in the description if you want the shortcut to get there. But today we have well, it's a black screen right now. To recap, the Archbishop of Nigeria opened, and he
Yes.
gave along a litany. The question, the proposition is Catholicism a force for good in the world? And the Archbishop of Nigeria didn't really list any reasons why it might be good. So
Yeah.
that was it was an easy layup for Christopher Hitchens to slap down by pointing out several horrible things the Catholic Church has done in its time, and now the second Catholic presenter is about to take her turn.
And he didn't have to even, reach for them. It really was, here's a few things just tossed out there that is the problem kind of thing. And in the after show, I brought up sort of, the genocide of Bosnia's Muslims by the, Orthodox Catholic Serbs kind of thing. So you know if you really want to delve deep, there's been a long litany of atrocities committed by the Catholic Church.
You don't
You
even
know,
have to go outside the 20th century, although you can because they've
that's
been around
true.
a while.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. So
But it is very early and I am very tired. I'm so sorry. I was so tired last night, and Justin contacted me. I'm like, yeah, okay, all right,
yeah,
let's do it.
I
Yeah.
feel that I've got my coffee, my possibly I've
Mm,
decided to cut coffee out of my diet for
okay.
calorie reasons and
Yep.
budget reasons, but I need it today. So this may be my last cup of coffee for a while. So I'm going to enjoy the hell out of that. But yeah, I've got my cardinal hat so that
Uh-huh.
I can measure up with the bishops. I've got my pearls to clutch. I think we're ready to go.
What is the title for a bishop anyway? What do you call a bishop?
I
There's a
think
whole.
your I mean, aside from bishop, your
Ah,
excellency, your holiness.
no,
I'm
the most reverend is apparently the title for a
oh
bishop.
oh.
It is the most reverend Ember.
I dig that because I actually am a reverend. As you know, I'm an ordained minister.
Ah,
And now I've
yep.
been promoted. I'm most reverend. Hooray.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get rid of this black screen business and see what our new friend has to say.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. If apologies are due tonight, they are due from Christopher Hitchens, who has just run through one of the longest series of misrepresentations of the Catholic Church that I have heard in a long time.
I wonder
Really?
if she can cite any specific instances. I kind of
Yeah.
want to place a bet on that, but I don't have any
True.
Dogecoin to put up.
Ran through sort of the AIDS epidemic, and he ran through um he ran through a fair bit, didn't he? Like, I don't think any of them were misleveraged or misrepresented, to be honest with you. Um, the obviously the child scandals with altar boys and things. That's not misrepresentation, lady.
I dare say. Although she may want to claim that and be like, no, no, that's
Yeah.
not actually happening. The Pope says so. Bloody hell, Discord's messing with my window. I want to get them the
Oh
right
no.
size. There we go. That's better, I reckon.
They keep telling me size isn't important, Ember. I don't know.
I mean, it depends on what you want to do. Like if you need to reach dishes on the top shelf, size can help.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And I'm behind. I'm the person that constantly gets asked at shopping centers, to get something off a shelf, like tall shelf or something. I'm that guy. So yeah.
Or you could just levitate it like Star
Ooh.
Song pointed out, Hitchens is levitate. Wingardium Leviosa.
It really is, I think, quite telling that in coping with a motion which says the Catholic Church is a force for good in the world, he has to go back to the Crusades in order to try and disprove it.
Well,
he didn't.
point of order.
Yeah.
He did not have to go big. He
No.
did, but he didn't have
Yeah.
to.
No,
this is the kind of sloppy thinking that
right.
we deal with. It's usually evangelicals, but it's all the same brew. Like she's kind of doing a reverse straw man sort of thing, where she's taking one thing he said and pretending that's the only thing he said.
Correct. Yeah, and so he didn't just have to go. He mentioned the AIDS epidemic for preventing contraception in Africa. He mentioned the abuse of children by the Catholic Church. Like, he didn't have to go back. What he did, though, really well was he presented that the Catholic Church has consistently throughout history done really bad stuff, like really bad. It's not that he has to go back there, but the fact that he can shows that it's never been a time, like, you couldn't even argue at a certain time it was a force for good, which was great, because you can't say, hey, they've had their stumbling blocks, but they've done good here. Why doesn't she just go to what good they have done?
Right. Like,
and how
just
that
present the
outweighs
good.
bad. Right.
For fuck's sake, it's not a big ask, and the fact that they can't do it is pretty remarkable.
I love that she's so angry, though.
Yeah. Let hefty, I think.
Letefte?
Yeah, my apologies for the pronunciation issue. But Bernard Law, recent news at the time, and that in turn reminds me that Pope Francis got himself off of my Christmas card list with his recent announcement. What the hell was it? I have it saved, but it's in the Discord, which I just shut down.
It was Pope Benedict when this was happening, right? And so Bernard Law, he was talking about the priest that was sheltered under Pope Benedict, kind of thing. Give me a sec. I'm just
one of the many.
Yeah.
Oh, where I can't find the damn thing. Whatever the hell it was. The Pope came out and said that trans people are horrible. Transgender surgery is an affront to human dignity, and probably something about abortion. And I'm like, yeah, he's nope.
Yeah, Pope John Paul. And yeah, yep.
Oh goodness. James Miller dropping by. Hello, James. Good to see you. Yes, James Billy Goose. Quite so. That reminds me. Ty Turner, trans man in Kansas, dealing with all the nonsense there. He's been doing live streams all month, I think, one day a month. Obviously, not everybody's into that sort of thing, but he's his group of fans he calls the Goose Army. They're silly gooses.
I love silly geese.
Absolutely, absolutely. Uh, Hello, Kamikaze. I will wave at you. I don't know who you're talking to, but I
Hey,
will wave at you.
I will wave to Kamikaze anytime.
Absolutely. Speak, woman, speak.
Or if that's slightly too far back, the sack of Constantinople. He can't actually look at the force that the Catholic Church is in the world today, but I do nevertheless want to join him on his ground, though not sharing any of his conclusions, and just look at some of the things which he has stated. He has said, and actually, no pope pronouncing ex cathedra could ever sound more convinced of truth than when Christopher Hitchens utters something incredibly questionable. But he has said, with that certainty which characterizes his utterances, that the Catholic Church has had a history of anti-Semitism. Let us just
Sure
look
has.
at the...
Yeah, that's literally true. Now, she's about to bust out a few specific examples of pro-Jewish things that either the Catholic Church or specific people have done, and that's wonderful. But the pattern isn't affected by a few anomalous data points.
Right.
You know, that whole
And-
blood libel thing that's at the heart of every modern
Yes.
conspiracy. You know, that's out there.
And the Catholic Church throughout the years has been very forthright, at least earlier on until very recently, under public pressure, it's changed to blame the Jewish people for the death of Jesus. That was its stance. So I don't think she is actually educated in what the Catholic Church's position on who was responsible for the death of Jesus was.
Which is weird to me because, this was 2009, I believe this was recorded. And so she was there for World War II. I mean, I'm not saying she's old. I'm just saying she was there for World War II. And, she had to have heard, oh, the Jews are at fault because they're the ones who killed Jesus. I mean, for fuck's sake, that's part of the reason the United States took so long to get into the war, because half the people here were still saying, why would we fight to defend the Jews? They are the ones who killed Jesus.
Mhm.
Granted, half the people here aren't Catholic, but half of them are.
So it's called the Jewish deicide, basically. It's basically the idea that the Jewish people are responsible for the death of Jesus. Basically the Council of Trent set it up that the logical corollary to this would be that Jesus' redemptive suffering, death, and resurrection was for the sins of the Jews alone and not all of humanity. That was what was taught by the church. The Second Vatican Council, 1962 to 1965. So we're only talking about 60s. Okay, we're only talking about 60 years ago odd here. The Catholic Church under Pope Paul the Sixth declared Nostra Aetate, which is basically a repudiation of that. The idea of a collective multi-generational Jewish guilt for the crucifixion of Jesus is declared that the accusation could not be made against all Jews without distinction then alive, nor against the Jews of today. And that's quoting him. So, you've got a problem with your history there, because they did blame the Jews for Jesus's death. All Jews, whether related to the people that did it or not, whoever is involved. And there still are some people or some Catholics rather, that reject the Second Vatican Council.
Yeah, that's a weird thing to me too, that a person can be Catholic and reject some of the key doctrines of Catholicism. Like, that's the whole point of being Catholic, is all the doctrines, but whatever.
Yep.
It's trippy because even a lot of the evangelicals realize that the death of Jesus is kind of the keystone of the divine plan. So even if you are going to blame the Jews, which according to the Bible, it was the Romans because the Jews wouldn't do it, but whatever. You should be
Well,
thanking them.
but they have that thing about Pontius Pilate washing his hands of the whole thing. That the only reason they did it was because the Jewish leaders wanted it to be done. They were telling the Romans they had, this person had to be punished. And so, the verses in there say Pontius Pilate washed his hands of the whole affair. Basically, will you do what you want to do? My soldiers will carry out the punishment. It's not my problem, essentially. So that's sort of the loophole that gets them out of it.
Big old cop out, even though it was still the Romans who did it. But yeah, I mean, the Sanhedrin did convict him of sorcery, blasphemy, necromancy, which he literally did according to the Gospels, but whatever. But also attempted usurpation. That's why that King of the Jews thing on his sign, and that's an offense against the Roman occupation, is the usurpation. But on a happier note, Robin Webster sends $5. Thank you so much, Robin. Always right up there with the support and the positive vibes. Ember looking especially pretty tonight, and Mark, awesome as always. I've been excited for this all week. Well, we hope we don't disappoint, and thank you so much, Robin. We appreciate the hell out of you.
Thank you so much,
at the
Robin.
Catholic Church, when the Jewish community was under the most serious threat that it has faced in recent centuries. And just look at the role that the Catholic Church played in the last World War. Mr. Hitchens ignores the thousands of Jews who were secreted and rescued in churches and monasteries throughout Europe.
No, I don't think Hitchens is ignoring that at all, because as we were just saying, the whole point of Catholicism is the hierarchy. The top declares certain things, and often priests, monks, and all the other various people, there's been a long tradition of sanctuary in the churches, specifically the Catholic churches, the cathedrals, and people could go to them and seek sanctuary, and sometimes they did it against the will of the secular authority that was hunting those people. It wouldn't be much of a sanctuary if they didn't.
Mm-hmm. And so the question comes: what do we mean by Catholicism? Because if you're talking about the actions of individual churches that aren't sanctioned by the Catholic, the papacy or the Holy See to do these things, then it doesn't really count now, does it? Because Catholicism is a hierarchical structure. So really it is what the top is saying, what the top is commanding people to do, that is the important part. If we're going to go to that level, we can point out that, hey, most of the actual Nazis were Catholics. They went to churches that didn't secrete people throughout, and had vastly different things to say about Jewish people.
Mm-hmm. And there's quite a bit of controversy about Pope Pius XII, who was the Pope during the Holocaust. His legacy, his claimed legacy, involves a whole bunch of tormented decisions about human and Christian prudence, to quote a Time magazine article. And so there's a lot of things claimed about what he did. Like, officially, the Vatican was neutral, even though they were situated in the middle of Mussolini's Italy, which was allied with Hitler's Germany, which was mostly Catholic. But the Pope was neutral, ostensibly. But the Pope was well aware of the Holocaust, the concentration camps, all of those things, and he stayed silent on the issue. He never said a word against it as pontiff, as Holy See. And I don't know, I can kind of appreciate the sense of needing to stay neutral as a religious power rather than a secular power. But granted, Martin Luther King came after him. But what Martin Luther King said about all it takes for evil to triumph is for good people to stay neutral. That wasn't an original idea to King. He just phrased it in that way that has that charm that he had. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how you can call yourself a man of God and see millions of people go to gas chambers and say, nope, I'm neutral.
Well, don't forget of where the papacy is. It is dead smack in the middle of Italy, which Italy, if you remember during that time, had Mussolini. So the Pope and Mussolini were at least talking, and there was a back channel from the Vatican to Hitler, basically. So the Pope really thought that the Germans were going to win and acted accordingly, validating him. Like it wasn't this massive protest kind of thing. He didn't try to condemn Hitler in any way for what he was doing. He just sort of, accepted that's the way things are going to be, kind of thing. And so this whole idea of them working against the Nazi regime and what they were doing is absolute bullshit. It is.
Yeah. It's infuriating for a whole bunch of different reasons. Like, there's so many apologists for Catholicism over the years, even into the present, say that, oh, well, what was going to happen no matter what the Pope said or did. Well, if that's the case, it wouldn't have hurt for the Pope to come out about and say, no, this is horrible, right? If it wouldn't have changed anything, it wouldn't have hurt him to do that. Oh, it's so frustrating.
So Pope Pius the 12th, Cardinal Pacelli, in 1933, the Vatican signed a concordant with Germany, hoping to protect the rights of Catholics under the Nazi government. Not the rights of Jews, the rights of Catholics.
Oh, Beamsy's got a reference for us. If you want a good read that paints the church in a worse light, The Pope at War, The Secret History of Pius XII, Mussolini, and Hitler by David Kurtzer. So yeah. Book suggestions. If Nee were here, he'd say drinks, but I haven't seen Nee in the chat. Maybe he is. Maybe he's loitering. Or maybe he's changed his name again, and we don't know which configuration he's in.
Stealth operation, yeah.
He's very sneaky. I mean, you can usually ID him because it's something that just screams Dapper's chat, but who knows? Maybe he's sneakier now.
Tremendous risk to the priests and the monks and the nuns who were hiding them. He ignores the 3,000 Jews who, in the course of that conflict, took refuge in the Pope's own summer palace. He contradicts flatly the statement of so many prominent Jews after 1945 who expressed gratitude to Pius XII, even to the extent of sending the Israeli Philharmonic Orchestra to stage a concert in the Pope's honor. Not, I think...
Well, that may have something to do with some other things that happened. First, I want to fact check that. Did 3,000 Jews shelter in the Pope's summer palace? The papal palace of Castel Gandolfo, the Pope's summer residence, was used to shelter Jews fleeing Nazi roundups in Italy. Approximately 3,000 Jews. I gotta. Let's read together, shall we? Members of the church, through lobbying access officials, provision of false documents, and the hiding of people in monasteries, convents, schools, families, etc. The Israeli diplomat and historian Pinchas Lapid estimated the figure at between 700,000 and 860,000, although the figure is contested. I mean, cool beans, even if it's in that neighborhood, because that's close to 1 million. If not for that, then Hitler wouldn't be remembered for 6 million Jews. He'd be remembered for 7 million Jews. And that does matter.
Yes.
The church itself faced persecution in Hitler's Germany. Interesting. An institutional German Catholic resistance to Nazism centered largely on defending the church's own. Oh, that's why. It's the church's rights, not anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Nationalizing
Yeah,
everything.
and that's my point. Like they signed a concordant with Germany mostly to protect the rights of the Catholics in Germany, not because they were trying to save the Jewish people or something like that.
Yeah, they weren't interested in any of those things, just protecting their own interests. I'm trying to find that whole Catholic efforts to save Jews. I'm sure there's a lot of individual things, but I want to see.
I think from
How
what
about
I'm
that Summer
reading,
Palace thing?
they sort of they tried to declare the Jews thing, but apparently they 1,260 were arrested and brought to a military college outside of the walls of the Vatican. 250 of them were freed, 1,007 were shipped off, and 16 survived Auschwitz, which is just, horrible, absolutely horrible.
Okay. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, Pope Pius XII refused to go further in his condemnation of Hitler because, quote, he feared that public papal denunciations might provoke the regime to further brutalize those subject to Nazi terror, as it had when the Dutch bishops publicly protested earlier in the year, while jeopardizing the future of the church. So, once again, it's more about concern for the church than anything else.
Yeah, concern for people.
Yeah, it's an oof. I don't know. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time digging through here to find that Summer Palace thing. Let's just grant that one for the sake of argument, and boogie ourselves along here.
Well, but here's the thing: like, you are the true representatives of God that have the backing of God, and you literally have God's messenger on earth, and you're scared of what the Nazis are going to do to your church. Like, it's like when I laugh every time I see the Pope bouncing around in the Pope mobile, the bulletproof glass, and I think, wow, there's a lot of faith, isn't there? The creator of the universe needs to have bulletproof glass over his Pope. Like, you'd think that, there's no way anybody could actually get a shot off at God's messenger kind of thing, God's representative on earth.
Well, I mean, and on the one hand, yes, but on the other hand, look what happened to Jesus, and he was Jesus. What chance does the Pope have?
Well, that's true, but that was supposed to happen. So are you then interfering with God's? I don't know. It's just, I think a comedian once said there's sort of a faith in action, isn't it? When you've got bulletproof glass in front of your representative of God, It seems a little unnecessary.
Yeah, well, as I've often said, when it comes to that whole "there's no atheists in foxholes" things, the truth is the other way around. There's no believers in foxholes, because when it comes right down to it, people do know, they emotionally believe, but they intellectually know that there's something wrong with those beliefs, that there's a seed of irrationality in there. Yeah, when people think they're legitimately going to die, they may pray, but they also try to get out of dying.
Yeah.
Something that they would have done if they had thought he had been anti-Semitic. But rather they recognized that the Catholic Church throughout that period acted within the limitations of the time as a force for good.
Hold on. There's another point there. You can be anti-Semitic and still recognize that Jews are human beings who shouldn't be slaughtered en masse. Both of those things can be true.
Martin Gilbert and Michael Burley historians of very considerable repute point to the large number of Catholics who found themselves in Dachau. And of course, we should remember that any Christian, not just Catholic, but any Christian joining the SS had first to renounce his faith. So I do not think that a charge of anti-Semitism can stand up. Yes, it is quite...
He's throwing out a whole lot of claims, and I do not have time to
Yeah.
fact check all of them. Beamsy just sent an article that apparently clears up some of the history about the papal vacation home. And I'm like trying to read that, and she's throwing out stuff about SS soldiers being asked to renounce their faith, which may be true, because the SS is supposed to be dedicated to the regime first and foremost.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's a claim. Is that true? I don't know. Oh, my goodness. Did the SS require a renunciation of faith? Members of the SS could be of any religion except Judaism, but atheists were not allowed. Actually, I am so glad that came up, because when people try to mischaracterize, oh, the Nazis were atheists, yada, yada, no. Atheists were expressly not allowed to be part of the inner circle. So there's that. We found something interesting anyway.
quite true.
So,
That the
yeah,
New
okay. So, Gottgläubig, literally believing in God, was a Nazi religious term for a form of non-denominalization and deism practiced by those German citizens who had officially left Christian churches but professed faith in some higher power or divine creator. It denotes, no institutional religion. I don't think they were required. I think they were asked to, but I don't think they were required to. So Himmler was the main person that we're talking about here. And said any human that does not believe in God should be considered arrogant, megalomaniac, and stupid, and thus not suited for the SS. Now, I will happily acknowledge that I am not suited for the SS. Absolutely,
Yeah, and the only renounce a religion thing
Okay,
I'm
here we go.
seeing is Jehovah's Witnesses were asked to renounce their faith as part of their persecution.
The SS personnel records show that most of its members who left churches of their upbringing did so just before or shortly after joining the SS. I'm not even trying to pronounce that. The SD members were the most willing corps within the SS to withdraw from their Christian denominations and change their religious affiliations to Gottgläubig faith at 90%. Of the SS officers, 74% of those who joined the SS before 1933 did so, while 68% who joined the SS after 33 would usually declare themselves Gottgläubig. Of the general membership, 16% had left their respective churches by the end of 1937. So this is 100% bullshit that they had to leave their churches. No, they didn't. That it was sort of one of those things where it was seen as a good idea. They had to renounce their faith. Well, no. So what she's saying is they had to leave their churches, because don't forget this Gottgläubig, the God belief, is sort of a deism. It's not really a Catholic say. So they have that she's claiming they were told they have to renounce Catholicism, but that's not true. They were asked to, and there was a certain amount of, because all the person in charge didn't like religions, but only 16% of the general personnel of the SS had actually left their church by 1937. So that is bullshit.
And did they leave their church and join one of the unified Christian churches that Hitler was trying to set up, or did they just leave all churches?
No, it doesn't say. But sort of, they had left Christian churches, so they sort of, So I don't know. I honestly don't know. It doesn't say that.
Yeah, it's details can be quite important and also illuminating. Robin Webster says, I can hear William Lane Craig now. The only people that were harmed during the Holocaust were the poor German soldiers and all the trauma they suffered. Yeah, we're not letting Craig live down this business.
Yeah.
It was actually a tremendous blessing to these children for them to be killed and go to heaven and be with God.
Yeah. Nope.
Nope.
Oh, I almost feel bad for Bill Craig, but the only people who were harmed by Bill Craig's assertions are Bill Craig himself for the trauma of having to make these apologetics for the horrible things.
Mm-hmm.
Or something.
The Testament says that the first century Sanhedrin made a very major contribution to the death of Christ. So also did the Romans. And indeed, it's Pontius Pilate that we remember in the Creed every Sunday, not the Sanhedrin. Yet I do not recall Mr. Hitchens suggesting that because of that, the modern Catholic Church is anti-Italian.
Italian? For what? Pilate? What?
So, but the church didn't have a history of of Italian deicide. Like, they didn't have that as their position. This is ridiculous.
It's beyond
Why
me
would
to say Rome is like modern Italy is responsible for the war crimes of the Roman Empire is just,
Ryan?
Wow.
Bafflingly bewildering. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you may as well blame France or Greece or any other modern country that was once part of the empire.
Or the Jews for what the Sanhedrin did, for instance. It's just as bizarre as that. Catholic Church.
And on top of it all, that was part of God's divine plan for the redemption of mankind or whatever. So you should be blaming Yahweh most of all.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Well, we shouldn't be blaming anybody. Apparently, it was a good thing that it happened, right?
It was. I mean, that's literally the good news.
Yeah.
When people come and knock on your door and hand you pamphlets, the good news is Jesus died for your sins, right?
Right. Yeah.
You kind of need Jesus to die for that to be a thing. I don't know.
I rather thought it was quite pro-Italian. He also suggests that the Pope welcomed back a Holocaust-denying bishop. Let us first remember that the bishop in question was originally expelled for disobedience. Upon being reinstated and upon reiterating his views, the Pope, a fact conveniently ignored by Mr. Hitchens, commanded him to repent, commanded him to deny what he had said. You would think from listening to Mr. Hitchens that the Catholic Church alone has been responsible for atrocities throughout history.
I mean, they have been. Like, they're not the only organization that commits atrocities, but they've been responsible for a lot of atrocities. I wish I haven't I've been collecting clips and whatnot. I wish I had one specific clip that I do not have. It's that scene from the Monty Python skit where the dudes in the red outfits burst in and go, "No one expects the Spanish Inquisition." Yeah, that's Catholicism. There were inquisitions in lots of European countries, not just Spain. The Spanish one was slightly more brutal than the others, but they were all in the same league. Beebsy says, he died for my sins. Damn, well, I better get sinning or he died for nothing. I went to high school with a person who said something like that. Like he'd even at a teenage age, he would cuss and drink and smoke and people would, oh, think of your immortal soul. And he'd be like, well, Jesus died for my sins. I got to give him his money's worth.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sacred duty, you might say.
If you are going to judge the Catholic Church at any given stage in history, then you have to judge it against the standards that were prevailing at the time.
Do you? Isn't the entire point of we've got this eternal objective morality handed down directly from God? So why the fuck would Catholicism get an excuse because of the standards at the time or the moral values at the time, which incidentally is also
Yeah.
bullshit, but that's a whole other topic. It just no, you're supposed to you're measuring your morality against the perfect morality commanded by your
Yes.
all-powerful creator, Carpenter Ghost.
That's why I get bewildered why she sort of says that, and why people like Praise start to say, well, don't do presentism, which is sort of holding people in the past to the current present moral standard, because that is moral relativism. We basically go, hey, that is the morals of the time, that they didn't understand the ramifications of what they were doing, and they that's all they knew, kind of thing. Our understanding of the consequences of the city states of Greece all slaughtering one another, they didn't understand the ramifications of that at the time. That's expecting them to understand why that is sort of really bad tribalism is kind of presentism. Like, it took us a while to figure that stuff out, right? But they'll appeal to it, and it's like, but that's moral relativism. That's saying, well, that's the best they knew at the time. That's the only way. When you talk about slavery and you say, hey, that's it was normal at that time. Yes, I agree, but that is moral relativism. It just is.
That actually just came up the other night. Dr. Josh, Dr. Kip, and Derek from MythVision did a triple stream debunking a new slavery apologetics video. And the first 3 points the apologist made were literally moral relativism. Well, the Jews were less harsh about slavery than anyone else at the time, which incidentally is false. As it's an older video now, but Nara and I did a thing on that about how the Persian Empire actually was nicer to slaves than the Jews are, but never mind all that. The point is, you're claiming perfect morality, but also moral relativism, and it doesn't work.
Well, I've talked to Dr. Josh about that, actually, and he sort of says, well, it depends on what time you look at and what other cultures you're looking at. So, what time during, because I mean, it's not like the history of the Israelite people is just 100 years and that's it. It spans a very long time, from the exile to Babylon and then coming out, and then all these things happening. So it depends on what time of history you're looking at and what other time and place you're comparing it to. So the Persians at one point were absolutely worse. The Romans may have been better at this point. They may have been worse at another point. It's really hard to get down to say, oh, these guys had bad slavery, but that was good slavery. It's like, no, it's all bad. It's all bad. We're just moving that metric of how bad it was.
Shift them goalposts.
Oh,
I need a gift.
Can we
for
just
that
say
one.
all
That comes
slavery
up
is
a lot.
bad?
Right?
And I hate it when they go to sort of this, oh, but slavery still exists today. And it's like, there's more slavery today than there ever was in the past, in any one place in the past, because sort of looking worldwide, there's so many more people and so many more people being exploited. That doesn't make it right. Like, just because something is horrible today doesn't mean it's acceptable in the past.
Just a random quick inquiry here. In 1838, the Society of Jesuits, a group of prominent Catholic priests, sold 272 enslaved people to save Georgetown University. The first major Catholic institution in the U.S. sold 300 slaves to fund the school. Welp. Objective morality, folks.
and condemning the Inquisition, which was a horrible thing. Condemning the Inquisition in isolation from condemning just about the whole, in fact, the whole, of European society, which at that time rejoiced in punishment and torture as a means of dealing with criminality and with treason and with wrongdoing.
Oh God, Stephen Fry's almost face palming. I know how we feel. Like it's like you can't say, "Hey, other people were doing bad things, so our bad things are fine."
Yeah, like that's not making it any better.
No,
Does she think that's making it better?
I don't know. But it's sort of saying, "Hey, a lot of people are doing bad things, therefore me robbing the bank isn't so bad." What the hell, lady?
Yeah, it's like, okay, we're having the purge. I'm only like robbing people blind. I'm not, doing all the murder like everyone else is. So I'm by contrast, I'm the moral one here. Yes.
Yes, and all of those institutions that were doing bad stuff didn't survive. Right. So the aristocracy, the sort of, robber barons and things like they didn't survive basically the annals of history. The Catholic Church did. So the idea that we shouldn't hold the Catholic Church responsible because lots of people were doing bad stuff, it's an affront to our idea of justice. Like I get arrested for murder and I go, oh wait, but Jeffrey Dahmer did this other thing. Well, yeah, so frigging what? So who cares? You're still responsible for the bad stuff that you did. And, your whole idea is to repudiate that the Catholic Church did all this bad stuff and you try to start out. And now you're switching into, yes, we did bad stuff, but other people were doing bad stuff too. You're not going well, lady. Like, seriously, you are doing very badly.
Yeah, and still not pointing to any good things. Well, maybe partial credit for the hiding the Jews things.
Yeah. Which was, I think that is a mischaracterization anyway. Sort of her ideas of, who was being hidden and why. I don't know about that one, and whether it was the Vatican or it was the just individuals within the church deciding to do that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, like if you set up a monster who starts doing horrible things because you put him in power and then you protect a few people from the things he's doing, does that make you a force for good? I don't know. Also, thanks to Beamsy for sending me a link so we can do this.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
There we go.
Yeah.
Now it's on record.
Nice.
To try and divorce the Catholic Church from that and say that it was uniquely guilty under the Inquisition is...
Hold on. Nobody's saying it's uniquely guilty. It's not the only guilty thing in existence.
Right.
They're just saying it's done horrible things, and net overall is not a force for good in the world. Not that it's the worst thing ever, for fuck's sake.
Wow.
There's my pearls. I gotta clutch them. Gotta hold them tight.
is simply trying to look back at centuries gone past and apply a standard that nobody applied at the time. And
really? If nobody applied that standard at the time, then what good is this book full of universally optimal, maximal morals, or what the fuck ever they call it? Like, if no one is following the Bible, then what good is it?
Yeah.
coming nearer to our day, of course, Christopher Hitchens is right, and who could possibly dispute with him that the abuse of children, of innocent children, is one, in fact, it is the worst offence that anybody can commit. Of that, no doubt. But again, he seems to think that the Catholic Church should have had some unique insight, which demonstrably was lacking in society as a whole, and I'll give examples, at the time. Let's remember that in the 19...
At the time, it's still happening. They've been told for decades this has been happening, and they're still not only condemning it, or enabling it, but they're still shuffling priests around to protect the
Yeah.
priests.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the biggest financial issues Catholicism has, is they have to keep selling off property to pay court settlements to abuse
Yes.
victims.
Mhm.
Like, maybe stop doing that. I don't know.
1970s, not the Crusades, not the sack of Constantinople, but in the 1970s, the National Council for Civil Liberties in this country allowed the paedophile information exchange to affiliate to it. And the National Council for Civil Liberties had extremely respectable people at its head, including Harriet Harman and Patricia Hewitt. Would anybody seriously say that they condone child abuse? They were acting in the ignorance of the time. Magistrate.
Well, I don't know who those people are, but if they left a system in place that made it possible, even easy to do, then they didn't really do much to stop it, did they?
Yeah. And a lot of these abuses were not the first time this priest had abused a child. That's the whole point, that the Catholic Church, instead of saying sort of like a secular legal authority would do to say, hey, you have to be punished for this, and they try to protect their members against the secular laws, so they moved them round. And this is what we're not saying that the Catholic Church did these things, right? That's not the church. But the church as an institution definitely allowed them to reoffend by moving them to a place where they weren't known to anybody. This is the thing that's being leveraged against it. And they knew this stuff was going on, and they didn't, warn people. They didn't, stop that person from or remove that person from a place where they could commit those felonies, and they set up the circumstance where they could reoffend. That is what they're culpable for. But she's sort of saying, oh, well, if there were people opposed to it in the church, then it's all okay. No, they were actively setting up the circumstances of these people reoffending. And what they ought to have done is turned in those priests to the secular authorities for punishment under secular law. Because it doesn't matter who your God is. God, you can't have special people that are above the law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a considerable amount of data, and it's mixed, because getting an absolute number on how many actual assaults took place is difficult, because a lot of them never get reported, or they never go past the report stage. And of course, the church isn't going to say, yes, this definitely happened, if they can possibly get out of it in any way. There's an organization called Bishop Accountability that tracks accusations and lists currently more than 6,400 priests or other Catholic Church personnel currently under accusation for harming children. Like, it's not just the shuffling priests around. It's a systemic issue that no one's doing anything about. So that's fun.
At that time, magistrates, some didn't even get before judges sometimes. Magistrates were awarding a few months in prison for that heinous crime. I myself, in the 1980s, trained as a Samaritan. One of the things we were taught was how to handle it when we got callers about child abuse. We were not taught then, because they didn't know, that actually there was no way that somebody who abused would simply stop. And it was only in the mid-1990s, and don't I know it because I was in the Home Office at the time, that we actually introduced in this country a register of sex offenders. Do not expect the Catholic Church somehow, when that was the state of knowledge at the time, to have acted in a unique and completely different way. In retrospect,
shouldn't they, again, with the moral standards, like, oh, well, the secular authorities weren't doing anything about it, so why should the church care about this tremendous amount of harm that they knew was happening?
Yeah.
Like, what a bullshit cop out. Like,
Yeah.
that's infuriating. It's like if you were harassed by bullies at school, and the principal of the school said, well, the police didn't do anything about it, so why should I? Like, it's literally your job to take care of the children here, you fuckknuckle. Oh my goodness. On a happier note, Doc Dino drops by. Technically, he's correct. It's a paid, it may be our first paid ad. Doc says, "Hola, amigos y amigas, y amigas." My Spanish is awful. Hope all is well. Been missing y'all. I'm planning a return to YouTube real soon. Hope y'all like dinosaurs. Yeah, paid ad. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Doc. I do appreciate
Thanks,
the super
Doc.
chat.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And also,
M-
it'll be good to see you back. I mean, I've been
Yeah.
missing Creation Science Theater, which is traditionally on Mondays on Doc's channel,
Mhm.
because I have to go to bed so damn early for work. But it's there, and it's usually a ton of fun.
Yeah, I always enjoy when I drop into that. Usually I've got some conflicts, but you know, when I have it free, I do like to drop in. I do like me some you know, creation science theater. I think you know, I think everyone at some point likes dinosaurs. I don't know. There's sort of a thing that every little boy likes dinosaurs, basically. But I don't think that's, you know, just a boy thing. I think there's something about them, isn't there? There's something very, very interesting about the idea that there used to be these massive, you know, leviathans that used to walk the earth, kind of thing. It's just incredible. That's why people go to museums and see dinosaur bones. It's just having that perspective of how sort of small we actually are and fragile we actually are as humans. There's something really awe-inspiring about seeing the you know, brontosaurus skeleton that you're like, wow, that is damn big. Like, that is really big. But there's little dinosaurs too. Little dinosaurs,
lots of cute little critters.
Yeah.
Much like modern birds. It's pretty neat. And that's sort of one of the chief values of dunking on creationists, because it's something that, you know, everyone can get behind, regardless of faith, because it's just bad science, really.
Yeah.
And in a way, they're diminishing the majesty of reality so much. It's not just dinosaurs. It's the magnificence of the cosmos. It's the glory of human achievement, the wonders that our ancestors pulled off. They're taking all of it and saying, nope, 6,000 years, God did it. That's it. Everything is just a cardboard facade waiting to get knocked down when the Last Judgment shows up. It's so awful. And dunking on it is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. In retrospect, yup. In retrospect, it should have done. So should the magistrates. So should the Samaritans. So should the National Council of Civil Liberties. But when we ask
hold on.
whether the Catholic Church...
But you're basically sort of, if the government of the time and the secular institutions were still around, we would hold them accountable, but they didn't move around people that had committed crimes, right? They didn't do that. Like her sort of saying, oh, it happened under the secular watch as well, kind of thing. Yeah, but they weren't aware of it and moved around people so they could reoffend. Like, that's not what's... I don't understand this comparison. She's sort of ignoring the fact that they were moved by the leaders to other dioceses where nobody knew them, because they were unable to be priests where they were, because the populace and the masses had realized that they were a absolute evil prick.
Yeah,
and
which
I will
goes
say
to show
that because
they
don't allow
knew
women
it
as
was
priests.
wrong, or they wouldn't
Yeah,
have
they
done
knew it was wrong.
that. It's
That's
oh
correct.
my goodness.
And, you know, look at that Bernard Law, who they basically moved to the Vatican in order to shield him from prosecution in the US, where he committed crimes. This is not the same as, you know, these things happening under a secular government and the law hasn't caught up yet, or the law hasn't actually, you know, we haven't been able to rectify it. It's not the same thing. It is not the same thing.
Absolutely. Got a couple of comments. Peter Guns, hello, says, what's in the vape pen? I am currently down to 0.12%.
Well done.
This is a lovely mix called Clear Sapphire. But yeah, hopefully soon we'll be at 0 and then we'll be done with the thing. But it's good progress, and I'm pretty happy about it. And Vonrek gifting 5 Emberships. Thank you so much. Those went to Fiona, Sydney Raptor, Wolfos, You Are Victoria, and Rochelle, whose screen name I can't actually pronounce. So hooray, and please enjoy all the fun custom emojis. Members do get to vote on new emoji slots when they open up. Oh, and Von Rex strikes again.
Yep.
Rapid fire. Those went to Booba Sweat, Unapologetically Chrissy, Millie Lancaster, Tofurkis, I think, and Temporal Insanity. Fantastic.
That first one was Fiona.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Good stuff. All kinds. There's more benefits than just the emojis. There's different levels. There's behind the scene photos. Occasionally, I'll do members only streams when I have both time and opportunity. Bunch of different things. But the emojis are some of the most accessible. So I hope you do enjoy. And Logan Fisher, member for 4 months, uses his member chat to send a heart to Vonrek. And that's very nice. That's very cool.
Yeah, thanks, Logan, and congratulations, everybody, and thank you, Vonrek. Double thank you. I've never seen Fiona spelt like that. That's cool. I like that name. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty nifty.
Yeah.
All right. Now back to the less fun part. One of these days we should do a stream where we just do the fun part, like ignore all this and just do the fun part.
That's true. That's true. We should just have, a tangent show, and where there is no actual thing that we're talking about. It's just all tangents, just random stuff. Yeah.
Which is a force for good. Let's just try to imagine a world today without, for example, the billions of pounds that are poured into overseas aid by the Catholic Church, contributing year on year more than any single nation.
Let's fact check that.
Yeah. And plus, a lot of what they consider to be charity is actually missionary work. They send people overseas to, I guess, bribe with aid people to join the Catholic Church, essentially.
Let's see. Okay. We can do things this way. In 2023, the United States government donated around $9.5 billion to humanitarian aid. The European Commission plus Germany were right behind, in second place with over $2 billion US dollar equivalent. So 9.5 billion, and let's see, how much did Catholicism give? How much did Catholicism give for aid in 2023? Because let's compare apples to apples. Vatican
when I
funding for
googled
charitable works totals 10.7 million. So I don't know. Last time I checked, 10.7 million was a whole lot less than 9.5 billion, like by a factor of 1,000, basically.
Yeah, and so I do see an article that's saying that nearly 200 dioceses in the US received COVID aid through the federal Paycheck Protection Program, while sitting on over $10 billion in assets.
Well, although in partial fairness, this was recorded in 2009, and we're using data from 2023. isn't impossible that at the time the Catholic Church gave a whole lot more. But I'm gonna where'd I put the but there it is. Oh shit. There we go. There's my new false stamp. It should go on her, but the way we're doing this, it shows up on my screen.
Yeah. I don't, I think she is overinflating. And plus, there is a conflation of how much of that is missionary work, i.e., sending people over to villages, and yes, they give them stuff, but there is a expectation to get something for their dollar, and that is the ability to be able to preach their doctrine to a captive audience. And I mean captive by they have agreed to listen to this stuff because they want the aid that they're offering. So that is more transactional than charity.
It's not a good look.
Imagine the developing world had been left without the input of the medicine and the education that was brought to it by the missions. Imagine
the education.
Yes. The colonialism did so many wonders for Africa over all the years.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Like, for fuck's sake. Tangent, but it is somewhat related. Modern vaccinations began with medical technology brought to the United States from Africa. They had inoculations for centuries before the Europeans ever found out about it. I mean, the flow of medicine, medical technology should go both ways, but missionaries are not required for that to happen.
Absence of those collections Sunday upon Sunday for famine relief. Imagine the absence of the church in the local community.
Famine relief. This church is out here telling people birth control is bad. They should have as big families as they possibly food for everyone. They send a little bit of money for famine relief. Oh, aren't they such a good organization? Fiona says, when I was a kid, my mom would go to the church to get food for our family. My parents were undocumented with 8 kids. The church made us sit through sermons before we got food. Full Christmas gifts, though. Yeah. I mean, at least there was something. But, that's unfortunately pretty typical. You have to jump through the hoops. Oh, yes, the education. The education of the people thanks to the missionaries. Yes, Andrew. Holy fuck. That kind of education. The assimilation, the missionaries and the colonialism they spread is what weakened Africa to the point that the slave trade was even possible.
Well, let's look at the top charities in the world, the charities that do the most in the world. So let's go through them, because I found Transparent Hands sort of a overview of the actual statistics behind the top charities. So UNICEF is the first one.
Makes sense.
Right? Yep. Because UNICEF does a whole lot of good for a whole lot of people, and they don't demand it in exchange for sermons and things. Right? So that's the United Nations. Okay, nothing to do with religion. Second one up is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
That tracks. Which, they do a lot.
And he has a lot of money to pump into that. Okay. The third one is Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, and I actually, support them because
hell yeah.
They actually have won a Nobel Prize for what they have done, because they are doctors that do not in any way that they will help anybody.
And they're especially critical they've been doing a lot of good in Ukraine over the past couple of years, but now they're necessary because Gaza no longer has any hospitals of its own. Doctors Without Borders is the entire medical access in that region at the moment.
Yeah. So the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement. So you've got to get sort of 3 down or 4 down to sort of get to any kind of religious organization. And whether the Red Cross is still a religious organization is very, very doubtful kind of thing, right? And Red Cross is sort of it doesn't really have any overtones of the Catholic Church, but it originally was a Christian organization. World Food Program, Oxfam, and then Salvation Army. So you sort of have to get all the way down before you even get to the first Catholic organization, which is the Salvation Army.
They're not Catholic.
Aren't they Catholic? I thought they were. I thought they had their roots.
They're Salvationists.
Oh, okay.
It's a whole separate church of their own.
Oh.
Their holy people are called by military ranks. In fact, like you might have a captain in charge of a particular parish, for lack of a better term, and then what would be a bishop or a cardinal is called a general. It's a friend of mine, the kid's stepdad actually used to be a part of their group, and it blew my mind when I found out they were religious.
It is Protestant. Yeah, you're right. It is Protestant. I've always thought they were like Catholic of origin. Okay. Well, then that they are, the Catholic Church isn't on the frigging list.
They're the number one of not being it's
But isn't this weird that they sort of see the Catholic Church as this massive force for good, but it is the United Nations and Doctors Without Borders and even Bill Gates, who is absolutely ridiculous, actually doing good things in the world, because they're not going out there going, well, we've got to. The idea that the Catholic Church, its main mission is to give charity is not true. Its main mission is to spread Catholicism. That is their main mission. Make no mistake about it. Whereas, UNICEF, its main mission is to help humanity, to represent the United Nations, to help all of humanity as one world kind of thing. That's what it's out there doing.
Yeah, it'd be great if we reach a point where organizations like UNICEF and Doctors Without Borders weren't even necessary. But for the time being, that claim about Catholicism being number one. Again, this was in 2009, but I don't think so. I don't know. No.
I know well that when I was in the Department of Employment and in the Home Office, and we were setting up initiatives, single regeneration budget, whatever it might be, we relied on the church, churches, every bit as much as we relied on local councils and on other organisations. We play a vital role, and you don't need to be.
Another point. People want to do good things. They want to help others. Oftentimes, speaking only about my own region of the country, because that's what I'm most familiar with here in upstate New York in the United States. But there's an organization called Catholic Charities, and a lot of social aid is done through them, including government social aid. It's pawned off on them because there isn't enough government staff to do it. That's done because it's there. Like, people have tried to set up secular alternative organizations, and they get stonewalled because Catholic Charities is there holding all the reins. It's not that we need Catholicism to do it. It's that Catholicism has a death grip on some of those things. So even the things that they do legitimately get to take credit for, it's only because they think they own charity,
Yeah. And can I just point out that she used to be with the Church of England? She actually left them over the Church of England ordaining female ministers.
Oh, good. So she's literally anti-feminist. That's fantastic.
Oh, she's just a marvelous person, who hopes that one day science will cure the gays.
Well, weirdly, it just so happened. I saw. Oh shit! Who's that? That damn. 1 second. I gotta look up. I gotta look up a thing here.
It's fine. It's fine.
There was a neurologist. I just saw his thing. Robert Sapolsky. He gave an interview a couple of days ago, and as part of the interview, he mentioned that a few years ago, a group of psychologists, psychiatrists, and neuroscientists got together and cured about 30 million people of their neurological issue. It was gay men. They decided that being gay men was no longer a mental illness, and effectively cured them. So science did
It's a
cure the
miracle.
gays.
It's a miracle.
Yes. Praise science. There we go. I gotta remember when to use the proper buttons and play with my button. Now that my buttons are once again working again. Oh goodness. Oh, but yeah, so I guess she got her wish on that one. It's weird that she would wish that science would cure gays instead of, God, but okay.
Be a
Faith
Catholic
in action.
to acknowledge that we play that role. What is the church? It is its members. It is the nuns and the monks and the priests and the lay workers and the congregations. It is not just the hierarchy of the church. And I believe that the church to which I belong is a massive, massive force for good. But let us not just keep the debate at that level. I knew somehow that when we were here tonight, we would be discussing child abuse and condoms. They came in the end.
She knew somehow. Somehow. It was a prophecy.
Somehow, yeah. Where did you come by this foreknowledge of these things coming up? Was it the fact that the horrendous atrocities committed by the church that you're currently defending? Maybe you had some kind of clue. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe just God told you.
Oh, that must be it. That must be.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Almost thought we were going to get through an entire speech without condoms from Christopher Hitchens, but we got them at the end. If he has a creed, it would be I believe in condoms. So,
I mean, condoms are a demonstrable force for good in the world.
Yeah. Prophylactics have stopped an incredible amount of disease. It's stopped the AIDS epidemic in Africa. Like you're basically going, this thing that we can demonstrate works to reduce harm is a bad thing. Wow.
Next she'll be on about how antibiotics are like saying you don't trust God to heal you. How dare you?
but that is not what the Catholic Church is about. It isn't only about the physical relief of the poor. It isn't only about the work it does on earth, but it is the message that it preaches. And that message is one of hope.
Is it? I've always had
Is
trouble
it?
with that one. Like, I've heard people say, Catholicism or Christianity generally, or other religions, that they're a message of hope. But what they tell you is that you are a horrible person, you
Yes.
deserve to burn in hell for eternity, and God hates you and will torture you. I don't see a lot of hope. Like, there's a little sliver of, if you do what I say, because you can't do, I'm telling you, it's what God says, but you don't have any external verification. It's literally what I say God says. So if you do what I say, then you won't be tortured for all fucking time. That's hope.
Sort of includes prostrating yourself and groveling for mercy from this, supposed dictator that you can't see, the man behind the curtain. You can't see, you've got no idea is there, but I'm telling you, you have to grovel for their forgiveness, or else he's going to torture you in the most horrific way you can possibly imagine, because you're a bad person. Something's wrong there when you're saying, hey, grovel and prostrate yourself between this person, but to this person, so they don't torture you which is your fault.
Yes, yes. It's so hopeful. Such an
Yeah.
uplifting message.
Oh, I get filled with, and you wonder why there's so much Catholic guilt out there. Catholic guilt's a thing, and they joke about it themselves, like they're guilty for every damn thing they do. They're guilty for not going to church. They're guilty for swearing at some point. They're guilty for even thinking the wrong thing, and all of this. You could point to that as being harm that the Catholic Church has done as well.
Yeah. Ay. These people they're exhausting.
Message is one of salvation. And it is all very well for some people in an intellectual arrogance to say, we can do without that. But actually, billions of people across the world live by that message of hope and of salvation. They try to live by the commandment.
Well, again, 2009, but the last time I checked, there were a total of 1.7 billion Christians in the world, and the number tends to go up because some of them don't believe in contraception. But I don't know if you can say billions if it's only 1.7 billion, and that's all Christians, including Eastern Orthodox, including the Protestants, and all the other groups. Yes, Catholicism is the largest subgroup. It's the largest faction within Christianity by a wide margin.
Yeah,
not billions, no, and never has been, unless there's something weird happened 1,000 years ago that we don't know about.
And also by the interpretation of those commandments by Christ. Yeah, sometimes they fail. Sometimes their leaders fail. Human beings do fail. But overwhelmingly, I say to you tonight with no apology or whatever, that a world without the Catholic Church would be poorer, would be more hopeless, and would be a worse place in which to live.
I don't think I can necessarily agree. Now, you could make a case. Counterfactuals are hard to come by, but you could make a case that the existence of the Catholic Church is what kept the world from becoming entirely Muslim. Because if without the Catholicism giving the divided post-Empire Europe a flag to rally behind, religion to keep out the other religion, it's a virtual certainty that Europe would have fallen kingdom by kingdom to the invading Ottomans.
Okay, but there's a problem with that, though. That Muhammad, quite likely, and I've read on sort of how Muhammad came by this religious belief. He was taught by an Arian, and that's Arian, not Aryan. It's a sect of religion. Priest, basically. He was influenced by him. So if the Catholic Church didn't exist, it is quite probable that Islam wouldn't exist either, because don't forget, they copied from the church. They still believe Jesus was a prophet, right? They still believe in the sort of Old Testament. So they copied from. So it's almost like a fan novel from Catholicism, and the mid 7th century church, basically, which was the Catholic Church at that point. So if the Catholic Church didn't exist, it's most likely that Islam wouldn't exist either.
Okay, that's fair. There's also a strong historical case to be made that it wasn't so much the decadence of the aristocrats or the constant failures to block off the assaults of the Goths and the Visigoths and all the others who kept sacking Rome. But all of that nonsense happened because of internal political sabotage from the fledgling church. They literally brought down the Western Empire so that they could become the new Western Empire. So without the Catholic Church, the empire might not have fallen. We don't. Again, counterfactuals are hard, but yeah, history would be very different, and
but
not
that's the whole
necessarily in
point.
bad ways.
not necessarily in bad ways, but not necessarily in good ways. There's sort of a problem there of we don't know what would happen because we can't tell what would happen if the church. But if we look at it on what actions have the church taken, you can point out all of these horrible actions, and there has been good actions as well. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it is enough to weigh out the horrendous things you can point to. Like I said, like if a government did these things like moving priests around, or if a government did these things like exacerbating the AIDS epidemic, we would be vilifying them as one of the worst villains in human history. I mean, how many deaths did preventing contraception to Africa actually cause? Uncounted. So much suffering and needless suffering too. We would vilify that government as an absolute disgusting institution that shouldn't be there. But the Catholic Church, it gets a pass because God.
Yeah. Freaking yeah. All right. Well, that's it for her. It's Stephen Fry's turn.
There is a
we'll
God.
Probably,
yes.
Yeah.
You also have a super chat, by the way.
Oh yes. I thought I might have, because I've been zipping around doing things and whatnot.
Yeah.
Letiefty. I'm probably making it worse. Since 5 euros, is it? I think that's euros. Whatever it is, thank you so much. And says, have you noticed that a big part of her speech is repeating what Hitchens said and then saying, so what?
Yeah.
That's a big oof. That's, yeah. That's
yeah.
Not a good look.
It's kind of like, I totally agree. Is it Leteft? I totally agree. I think that, and plus, like the real nail in the coffin is her going, so what? We denied condoms, or tried to get condoms out of Africa during the age. So what? You're obsessed with condoms. Wow, like you haven't read the room at all, like in any way, shape, or form. Like, oh wow, terrible.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so Stephen Fry, he's probably going to be a bit more entertaining and may have more of value to say, but so far it's not looking good for the Catholic Church. They haven't really rebuffed the arguments that they've done many bad things, and really have failed to present good things, like a couple partials, but overall it's not looking good. Maybe Stephen Fry can save them. I wouldn't bet on it, though.
She did sort of try to outweigh the bad. It's kind of, she had a twofold approach, which was sort of go, well, everyone did bad stuff, which is definitely faulty. Like that is just, that it's the old tu quo quo. It doesn't, two wrongs don't make a right, essentially. So she's like, well, everyone did bad stuff, and here's what good stuff they have done. But I think that the problem is that when she sort of said, oh, it gives people hope kind of thing, doing things for your own members isn't what we mean by a force for good. What we're really talking about is whether you benefit society in general, not if you just benefit your own people. And so a lot of the charity she's talking about, like I said, they try to convert people so it is for their own members. It didn't hold a lot of punch there. Not when compared.
It's still an empire. It's like, we're gonna oppress you and kill a bunch of your people on purpose, but if you join our team and help us oppress others, then you also can reap a share of the benefits. So, sign up.
Yeah, no, and Bonright's got a point. They didn't just try, they succeeded in convincing a lot of governments. Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right. They absolutely did prevent condoms from going into countries in Africa, yes. And compared with that, it's, yeah.
when you're blocking the good that other organizations are trying to do, not a hallmark of a force for good, I dare say.
Yeah. And you know, Hitchens has a point, like the amount that they've apologized for is just, you know, overwhelming. It's just stuff that it makes you go, ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, the Mongols had a good pirate thing going out. As Booba Sweat
Yeah.
points out, Mongols did that. Either become a Mongol or you died. And for a very long time, that's how the Catholic Church spread too. Like convert or die, cake or death, as the comedian once said.
Gentlemen, there are occasions, as Gwendolen remarked, in The Importance of Being Earnest, when it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind, it becomes a pleasure. And this is one such occasion with my trusty Hitch by my side. I am very proud to be here, but also very nervous, very worried. I've been nervous all day, and the reason I've been nervous is quite simple, and that is that this motion matters to me. It matters to me greatly. It's not a joke, it's not a game, it's not just a debate. I genuinely believe that the Catholic Church is not, to put it at its mildest, a force for good in the world. And therefore it is important for me to try and marshal my facts as well I can to explain why I think that. But I want first of all to say that I have no quarrel, no argument, and I wish to express no contempt for individual devout and pious members of that church. They are welcome to their sacraments, they're welcome to their reliquaries and to their Blessed Virgin Mary.
Wow, okay, just a sec. I just want to point out he's immediately connected with me. You know, he's sort of in this place where he's become very vulnerable and very genuine. You know, I've been very nervous for this because it matters to me, and you can tell that he is speaking honestly. You know, he is absolutely honest about what he's saying. This does matter to him. I love this. You know, don't get me wrong, usually they start with a joke kind of thing, but I really think that he just grabs people because he is being so genuine about what he's saying. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm sorry for the Metacritic.
No, that's a really good point that he's coming in like very often. Many of us, myself especially, but you know, sometimes all of us to some degree or another, we get so carried away by the harm that we see being done that we forget to point out that we're mad about the organization, the institution, the ideology, not necessarily the individual people. Doc Dino, to bring him back up, he goes to great lengths to point out that he's not against any particular religion with his Creation Science Theater show. He's against the things that the silly people do against science and the harm that does to people. It's not about ordinary believers at all. It's about the people who are deliberately doing bad things. And in this case, it's not even so much even those people, because within the Catholic Church, I think it's fair to say that the majority of people are trying to do good. It's the nature of the institution that twists their efforts. So yeah, it's very good that he opens up with the, you know, I don't have a problem with people having their faith. It's what this institution is doing that's the problem.
Right. And convincing those followers of which, is that really their fault? You know, because we've all believed things that are incorrect at some points in our lives, and they were, you know, it's kind of hard to blame the individual theist when they were raised and taught this and indoctrinated this. And especially when you talk to people who have come out of it and say, hey, I believed that sincerely for so long, you know, it's kind of hard to go, well, you're just stupid, or you're just this, or you're just that, because they're not. That's the thing. It's just what they've been taught from day one. Would I have been a Catholic if that's what I was taught from day one? Yes, probably, almost certainly, right? So yeah, it is the institution that we're railing against, not the individuals. And you know, a guitar dog, I get what you're saying. Hate the theology, not the theist, which I kind of like. It does
Mhm.
sound a little bit too much like, hate the sin, not the sinner kind of thing. But maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of the point. And as John points out, that we are broad brushing now in respect to
Yeah,
Stephen
yeah,
Fry's
yeah.
sentiment. There are individuals whom generally the kind that I seek out to address. The Frank Turek's, the Alan
Yes.
Parrs, the people who actually are actively doing harm and or grifting, or both. Those people
Yeah,
I will seek out and call out. But
but
they're
they're just assholes. And even
Mhm.
without the theology, they'd still be assholes. They'd just be doing it in a different way. Like they're just going to be assholes.
Yeah, as Uncle Bobby famously says of Gin and Truth, whose show has returned but is currently on Peter's channel. Going to go for it here on YouTube. He's trying to get his own channel back. They're working on it, but for now, that's where he is. He often says, "It isn't apologetics that makes a person a bad person. It's being a bad person that makes them seek out becoming an apologist. They're already bad people." That's how that works. Yes, Greg Locke, top of the fucking heap with the nonsense. That's why my big long birthday stream last year was about the evangelical cult, huge vast network of Greg Locke and affiliates doing similar things all across the country. But yeah,
The
Locke
axis
is
of evil.
right up
Yeah.
there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
To their faith, to the importance they place in it, to the comfort and the joy that they receive from it.
Thank
All
you,
of that is
Pragmatic.
absolutely fine by me. It would be impertinent and wrong of me to express any antagonism towards any individual who wishes to find salvation in whatever form they wish to express it. That, to me, is sacrosanct as much as any article of faith is sacrosanct to anyone of any church or any faith in the world. It's very important. It's also very important to me, as it happens, that I have my own beliefs. They are a belief in the Enlightenment. They're a belief in the eternal adventure of trying to discover moral truth in the world. Discover. It's a terrible.
I really like the way he phrased that. I was just talking to my kids. I had the kids. We were watching the new Fallout series on Prime, and I made a
I
new
just
weird
started
dinner.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and having a grand old time. And I was bringing them back to their moms before the show. We were talking about some serious issues that may have something to do with transitioning and things like that. And the relevant bit is I said that I don't want to. It's not that I'm afraid of death. I just don't. I want to see what happens next. I want to continue discovering new things and see what science comes up with and what's over the next horizon. And there's so much cool stuff right over the edge of sight. New technologies that will blow all of our minds, and new telescopes that'll show us strange new worlds in ways we've never seen. The future is freaking exciting.
Yeah.
And I want to see as much of it as I can. And it's very much, it strikes me very much the way Stephen Fry just said, discovering newer, deeper truths about morality, about reality is an adventure. And I really dig that.
Yeah.
Terribly important word to which we might return. It's a fight. It's an empirical fight. It's one that was begun in the middle of the last millennium. It's given the name the Enlightenment. And there is nothing, sadly, that the Catholic Church and its hierarchs likes to do more than to attack the Enlightenment. It did so at the time. Reference was made to Galileo and the fact that he was tortured for trying to explain the Copernican theory of the universe. That's history. History, as Miss Widdicombe has reminded us, is irrelevant. It's not important. All that matters now is that billions of pounds go out of this extraordinary institution to relieve the poor around the world and make the world a better place. History is of no importance whatsoever. Well, I beg to differ. History whinnies and quivers and vibrates in all of us, in this hall, in this square mile. Let's think about this square mile. I'll come back to it in a moment. But first, Christopher made mention of limbo. It seems so tedious and so silly. One of those little casuistic games that Thomists and others play. Aquinas and Augustine of Hippo both proposed this extraordinary idea.
But he's right.
They
He's
did.
absolutely right. Sort of, so, they're sort of saying, oh, what would happen without the Catholic Church? Well, the Enlightenment wouldn't have been so stifled and attacked. Because don't forget, the Enlightenment was mostly done by deists and people that didn't accept the church's doctrine of, well, you just have to place faith in God. He's got them there because the Enlightenment is what released us from having to listen to the Catholic Church as the authority of why things happen. It is the single greatest step towards science, and it rejected that the church gets to say that God does this. And they opposed it at every freaking turn because
every turn. I'm still mad about Galileo. Like, how much further? How much further would science be? I still say we're in a dark age now because of the church. It isn't just the Dark Ages. It's now. We're still held back from the speed of scientific advancement we could be achieving. We're still covering ground that we lost because of the hold of the church pre-Enlightenment. And possibly worst of all, we're still recovering lost technology that we had 2,000 years ago. Remember, indoor plumbing, the Romans had it, and we didn't get it back until the 1800s.
It was called the Dark Ages for a reason, because, really it just slowed down all kind of progress that we had made. And I mean, I'm not going to lay that squarely at the feet of the Catholic Church. You can point to the golden age of Islam, ending with the rise of, Muslim theocracy. But, it was a large force in stifling that development at the time. And Galileo is just one example. They also burnt that guy at the stake for suggesting that the Earth went round the sun kind of thing, the heliocentric model. So
Bruno, but we don't talk about him.
Bruno, yes, that's the guy's name, yeah. I mean, what contributions could he have made to technology and science at the time if he'd been allowed to live and supported by the church saying, hey, and then they want to say, oh, we educate people.
So Beamsy just sent a link. Here's a handy little chart about scientific advancement. Let's bigify that a bit. Scientific advancement, 1000 BCE to 2000 CE, and I don't know what data is used to concoct this graph. I don't know where that came from, but it's one possibly valid interpretation. We Christianity took over, and wham, we went way backwards in technology. And it stayed that way for a very long time. And while it's exponentially increasing now, we could have been where we are now in, if this chart is correct, approximately the year 800 or 900. It's 1,000 years of darkness because of the church specifically. Holy fuck.
Yes. Well, I'm not sure how accurate this is. I mean, I think that really when you're looking at it, it wouldn't be a smooth graph anyway. It'd have to be, really it would be going sort of, in spurts and then up and then sort of not really down, but sort of, less smooth than this. I'm not sure how accurate it is that we lost almost all technology, but and I think Rome towards the end was definitely stagnating as it split into two different empires and sort of didn't really make a lot of traction in either, or at least the Western Roman Empire was sort of collapsing. So I don't know. I don't know if this is particularly accurate or not, but what we do know is that there are a lot of technologies that the Romans had that disappeared in the Dark Ages, just disappeared. And we had to crawl out of it again. That's definitely true.
Yeah. It's so much oof.
Who were unbaptized would not know heaven. They also proposed the idea of purgatory, which doesn't exist in the Bible. There's absolutely no evidence for it. However, what an extraordinary, brilliant coup to imagine such a thing as purgatory. That a soul needs to be prayed for in order to go to heaven, in order to turn left when he enters the aeroplane of heaven and get a first-class seat. That he needs to be prayed for, and for many hundreds, indeed over 1,000 years, you'll be amazed what generous terms those prayers came at. Sometimes as little or as 2/3 of a year's salary could ensure.
It's the purchasing of indulgences.
Indulgences, yeah. One of the worst things ever leveraged, you know. So you've got, and let's face it, that's essentially what the prosperity gospel is doing today. You know, they're saying send money, but I mean that's a little different, because they're sort of saying send money, and not just you'll get into heaven, but also your life will be improved by God now.
Yes,
which
send
is
me your life
disgusting.
pennies.
Yeah, but the Catholic Church did essentially the same thing. You know, pray, send money to us, and we can forgive you for the sin of, you know, thinking about a woman, or thinking about a man, or, you know, thinking that God might not be real. You know, just stuff that's just everyday occurrences, right? Like, what the hell? What a scam!
It really is. It's oh my goodness, and I can't blame Martin Luther for being pissed about that. But then it's being recreated today by people who signed on to the whole. It's nonsense. We need to leave the church. Oh my goodness! I was listening to, as you know, I'm constantly doing opposition research. I don't want to live in an echo chamber. I'm always listening to what the apologists have to say, on the off chance one or another of them might make a good argument, or, you know, might actually say something worthwhile. It does happen from time to time. Oh shoot, I listened to too many, so I can't remember who the heck it was. No, it's just not coming to me. But he was complaining about deconstruction. Oh, it was Red Pen Logic. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was because Godless Granny's most recent video was about Red Pen Logic and Alyssa Childers appearing on some other apologist show to talk about their book they did about deconstruction and deconversion. And yeah, so Red Pen Logic was talking about deconstruction, and he was saying a lot of people, they take this Protestant idea of the church should always be reforming, but they do it wrong, because what they really should be doing is trying to make the church closer and closer and closer to what the Bible is trying to say. And I just had to laugh out loud, because the reason there are something like 43,000 different denominations of Protestant Christianity is because no one can agree on what the Bible says.
Right. And then there's a reason why we don't, like, because if you go back to the Old Testament, I mean, if you followed it back to the Old Testament, that is a nightmare dystopian world that you're looking at, to be in modern society. And, you know, when your son is a drunkard and lazy, you take him out in front of the temple and stone him. You know, like, I mean, come on. We're talking about ridiculously brutal sort of moral implications that would be condemned in any nation. So, you know, to go back to the roots, I always feel a little bit anxious when they're sort of saying that. No contradictions.
Yep. No contradictions.
Nope. Definitely none. Never seen one.
No, I may have to get out the Chicago Statement of Faith again soon, because that's a chuckle and a half.
Sure that a dead loved one would go to heaven. And money could ensure that your baby, your dead child, your dead uncle, your dead mother could go to heaven. And if you were rich enough, you could have a chantry built, and monks would permanently sing prayers so that that existence in heaven for the child would go up and up and up until they were at the table of the Lord themselves. Now, all this is in the past and is irrelevant. I see to Anne Widdecombe how irrelevant it is, except in one thing. This church is founded on the principle of intercession. Only through the apostolic succession, only through the laying on of hands from this Galilean carpenter, whom we can all admire, only from the laying on of hands to his apostles, to St. Peter, to the other bishops, all the way down to everyone consecrated in this room. Anyone ordained here will know they have this extraordinary power to change the molecules of wine into blood, literally, to change the molecules of paste bread into flesh, literally, and to forgive the sins of the peasants and the poor whom they routinely exploit around the planet.
On that note, as mentioned earlier in the stream, I am indeed an ordained minister. And in fact, now I'm apparently the most reverend. So anyone watching who believes in sin, I recently found out is a Mesopotamian god, the god of the moon specifically, but that's neither here nor there. Anyone who does believe in sin, you are now forgiven. You're welcome.
Only this church has this extraordinary principle that it is through these male priests, and only male priests, that this is given. It is a doctrinal fact. It is more than a doctrinal fact. It is a dogma. Extra ecclesiam nulla salus. Outside the church, there is no salvation. That is a dogma of the church that has been used to excuse all the missionary zeal, all the rape and torture of the Aztecs and the Incas, all the horrors of South America and Africa and the Philippines and the rest of the world, to which other churches and other cultures have also their guilt to admit. It's not unique to the Catholic Church, and I never said it was, and the motion doesn't say it was, or at least the opposition of the motion does not arrogate to the Catholic Church uniquely this sin. However, the particular nature of the exploitation of the poor, the vulnerable, and the young, if I were to talk to a priest now, believe me, that priest would be the most worldly, charming, self-deprecating, snobbish in a Ronald Knox, Alfred Gilby sort of way. He would be lovely.
He's tangenting on top of tangents, which I, as a tangenter, I do appreciate. I also appreciate the charm of the story and whatnot. But
yes.
I feel like I can't let him ramble on enough to actually get to his point. Or
he's got to bring it back in.
We risk copyright claims.
right. But also, like, he's got to bring it back into what his main point is, and his main point is that the enormous harms that it has done to people. So he's got to thread that hook back in. So I have confidence in Steve. I honestly I don't even remember this part of the debate. I remember the Hitch talking, but I don't remember this part.
Yeah, that whole no salvation outside of the church thing. I get why they would say that, because you need that to say, oh, well, all these Protestant churches are invalid because they're outside Catholicism, therefore they don't do you any good. But it's pretty wild.
Lovely. He would smoke. Gosh, how daring. He would be a sort of ha-ha-ha priest, and the superstition and the nonsense that we read about of the church, it's absolute. Don't pay any attention, Stephen. Just join Farm Street or the Brompton Oratory and have a marvellous time as a Catholic, and everything is lovely and splendid. But be poor and ignorant, and my goodness me, every single detail of damnation and original sin, and of any possibility of your complaining or asking to think for yourself. I said, let's think of this square mile. Just imagine in this square mile how many people were burned for reading the Bible in English. And one of the principal burners and torturers of those who tried to read the Bible in English here in London was Thomas More. You may know if you've read the novel Wolf Hall, which won the Man Booker Prize just the other day.
Yes, how dare people? That's in the past as well, so it obviously doesn't actually matter. But that was such a freaking. Don't you dare try to read the Bible for yourself. They opposed it so hard to the point of killing people, killing lots of people, because they knew that if people could read the Bible for themselves and not just take what the priest said on faith, coincidentally, that a lot of people would have some questions. And they did have some questions.
Yeah. And so Thomas More is treated as a saint still in Catholicism, but he tortured people, he executed people, he put people on trial for during the schism, the Great Schism between Protestantism and Catholicism. Whereas the Catholics, their main thing was, well, you don't read the Bible, you have the priests read the Bible and then explain it to you.
And unfortunately, very unfortunately, it turns out that the church didn't have all that much to worry about, because today there are a gazillion different English language translations, and the vast majority of churchgoers, at least here in the United States, have never actually read the Bible.
Right.
Like, they can, but they just don't.
That's really weird too, because sort of they had these people, like who was Martin Luther, fight for their right to read the Bible, and they don't read it. Like, it's one of their
It's unreal to me. I mean, it's come up numerous times throughout the skeptic community, and the humanist community generally, that while not everyone who deconverted did so because of the Bible, and while not everyone who reads the Bible deconverts, there is a very high correlation, to the point that it's legitimate to say that the single greatest converter of atheists, or deconverter of Christians, isn't Christopher Hitchens or Stephen Fry or us or Matt Dillahunty or anyone else. It's the Bible. The Bible causes more people to leave the church than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a long time ago. It's not relevant, except that it was only last century that Thomas More was made a saint, and it was only in the year 2000 that the last pope, the Pole, he made Thomas More the patron saint of politicians. This is a man who put people...
What a portfolio.
Wow.
Oh, politicians, my goodness.
I can just see politicians, would come vote time on the floor of the House, they're praying to Thomas More, like, what are we doing, people? Stop. Like, can we just stop this nonsense?
Do you think some of the popes anyway realize that it's a scam and or a joke, and just, I mean, I still think that Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, he wanted to run a cult for the power and the money and the influence and the additional spouses, shall we say, all of these things. But once he started really getting traction and really getting away with it, I think there was this thing in his mind, and he was like, how absurd can I make this story and people will still believe it? It became a social experiment for him. I really, truly think he put shit in there just to see how far people would still believe him.
I don't know.
Crazy.
I think, and I would disagree with you. I'm of the opinion that Joseph Smith started out conning people and he bought his own bullshit. That's what I think. I think he actually, he convinced himself so hard that he actually, thought he was some kind of prophet kind of thing.
I mean, it's quite possible considering the circumstances, because, a lot of the time people who belong to religions that are obviously really wacky, like Mormonism, it's the peer pressure of the people around them, the nature of their community, who just keep telling them, doubt your doubts, and reassure them that what they're believing is true.
Yeah, and once they all agree, you can have, it's because our minds are weird. You see, James Randi used to, test people for these things, and these people, they would go on there willingly, even though he obviously had controlled conditions so they could not cheat, and they knew that, right? They knew that. So how would, like, you're a con artist and you're basically doing all this stuff. Why would you go on there under controlled conditions that would prevent you from cheating? Was it an idea that you could overcome those conditions, or was it that they had actually believed they had these abilities that they don't in fact have? And if they do think they have these abilities, how many times has someone, convinced people that they're a psychic or whatever, and ended up believing their own bullshit?
Oh, well, yeah, there is that. I've known a few people who started to get into psychic services for fame and fortune and whatnot, following in the footsteps of the
Mm.
Fox sisters, closely related to Joseph Smith in ideological terms and temporal terms. They lived
Mm.
just up the road from Palmyra when they were growing up, and at about the same time. But that's a tangent in and of itself. Yeah, they knew they were scammers when they started, but after a
Yep.
few remarkable lucky hits, they started to believe their own stuff, and it probably didn't hurt
Yep.
that people kept coming to them and handing them large
Yep.
sums of money and saying, "You really have a gift."
Right.
Like eventually you start to think, maybe I do.
Yeah, I think that the human mind and the brain is capable of tricking itself into all kinds of things. Certain things fascinate me, like the no touch masters kind of thing, and the no touch master steps into the ring with an MMA fighter. At that point, you're not conning people, you're delusional. If you think that your no touch martial art is going to beat a trained MMA fighter, at that point, you have bought your own ideas, however wrong they may be. So we need something to snap people out of this. And Pragmatic sort of says that, hey, his wife hid his papers, think they have to do again and might shake him. I absolutely agree with that as well. I think that's a very cognizant point, that his wife was trying to show that he was full of crap.
That was Lucy Harris.
Yeah.
It wasn't Joseph's wife. It was so Joseph stuffed his head in the hat to read the golden plates, and Harris was one of the primary people who wrote down what Joseph said he was reading off the plates.
Right. Yeah,
And then
yeah,
he brought the papers home to show his wife why he was away so long. He's like, look, I'm not cheating on you. I'm helping bring this holy book into the world as commanded by God, and yada yada. And she was like, how do you know he's not making it all up? And well, he didn't know, so she hid the papers and said, well, if he's really translating, he should be able to recreate these. And because Joseph Smith is a jackass who never thought more than half a step ahead of what he was currently doing, nobody made copies before they brought the papers home to Lucy. Oops.
Mhm.
And yeah, it turns out, it's so funny. It's yes, as Bree points out, it's one of my favorite parts of the South Park episode about the Mormons.
Yeah.
Is when they mention, of course, he didn't recreate the translation. He said, "Oh, God said I can't retranslate that because you've dared to question." But good news, the next section summarizes what was previously said, so it'll be said again in a different way, and people, it's an obvious admission that he couldn't retranslate it because he's making it all up. Now, there's lots of other reasons to know he made it all up, but here's a test, and he failed it blatantly and obviously, and Mormons go, yeah, that's the miracle that proves he was a real prophet. What? I still don't understand, but that's, yeah.
Incredible. You've got a falsification there, and they just come up with some bullshit reason to move the goalposts, like all religions do when they're tested and failed, and then claim it as a victory. It's baffling.
And Lunar Regolith, we are covering this debate between Hitchens and Fry versus Catholic bishopy type people, but at the moment we're tangenting like crazy people.
Yeah.
As one does.
Oh yeah. And Martin Harris was an idiot. Like she was definitely the brains of the two, because Martin Harris had claimed like he'd seen a candle sputtering and that was the work of the devil, and all of it. Like he was just ridiculously, just he was just credulous. He would believe anything, but Yeah. Who knows?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
On the rack for daring to own a Bible in English. He tortured them
Right.
for owning a Bible in their own language. The idea that the Catholic Church exists to disseminate the word of the Lord is nonsense. It is the only owner of the truth for the billions that it likes to boast about, because those billions are uneducated and poor, as again it likes to boast about.
Well, again,
Yeah,
1.7 billion, and that's total Christians. But she said billion, so
Yeah.
Stephen Fry
So yeah.
didn't Google it. It's 2009, so
Mm.
he's probably just going with what she said. But he does raise another very, very valid point that a lot of the believers are poor and uneducated, and
Right.
that's by design.
Yep. But it doesn't stop the Catholic Church from taking a tithe from them.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
But they are the ones it can tell and bully and domineer. And then we come to children. Well, it's all very well to say the world didn't know better. The world had no knowledge of how dangerous a crime child abuse was. I want to read you some of the words of Ratzinger, the current Pope.
Oh, he's prepared.
He is the head of state.
Oh, he's prepared. Oh no.
He understood the assignment.
Yeah. You thought Stephen Fry was just going to be an actor and a pushover, didn't you?
He's like, I got receipts, bitches.
Yep.
Whitcomb said, we didn't have the power of a nation state. Yes, you do. You are a nation state. Yes, I wrote it down. You mentioned that. You are a nation state. And it is no accident that the UN Cairo Population Conference, when they were trying to do something about the world's population spinning out of control, Vatican City, as a nation state represented at that conference, made a joint statement with the Islamic countries of the world, notably the most extreme Islamic countries of the world, led by Saudi Arabia, and it began on behalf of the revealed religions of the world, ... And what it did was essentially hobble and veto any possibility of women's sexual freedom in the world, because as we know, the Islamic religion and the Catholic Church have never been anything other than implacably opposed to women's choice in their own bodies and their destinies.
That's a really, really solid point. And, you know,
Hey,
it still goes on today.
It's also opposed to men's choice in their own body and their own destiny. Like, I had a vasectomy because my wife and I are not going to have children. We've decided this. Please respect our decision. Basically talking to the person, they're like, oh, this hospital, oh no, we can't go for that hospital. They won't do it. And stupidly I went, why? Why won't that? And they're like, it's a Catholic hospital. And I'm like, why? Like, what has that got to do with it? And Lynn's like, oh, honey, the Catholics won't do that kind. And then it clicked and I'm like, oh, they don't believe in any kind of birth control, any kind of, restriction. Even if that is my choice, they're still dictating to me that they won't do it. But they'll reverse one. They'll reverse a vasectomy. But I had to go elsewhere for that procedure because that hospital, I might add, which is publicly funded because all hospitals do get funding from the government, won't perform it because of religious reasons.
Yeah.
Despicable.
We have a very similar problem here in the U.S. As you know, we have a big problem with corporatized medicine, but the Catholic Church was doing that before it was even a thing. Hospitals are given money by the government to continue operating, even though they're for-profit corporations. And the Catholic Church, they own more hospitals than anything else in the United States because hospitals are really, really profitable. But they put their own religious restrictions on who they treat, how they treat, etc. And nobody sees a problem with this, apparently, or at least nobody in charge who can do something about it, possibly because there's a patron saint of politicians or some bullshit like that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Who was the patron saint of politician? Thomas More. More. Ugh.
However, so Ratzinger, in 2003, he was prefect, I'm not making this up, he was prefect of the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith, and it was his job to deal with the child abuse scandal that was brewing. His first act was to write a letter to Catholic bishops ordering them, on pain of excommunication, not to talk to the police or anyone else. Investigations should be handled, he wrote, and I'm quoting that letter, in the most secretive way, restrained by perpetual silence. The Mexican...
And they're sadly not alone in that. They're infamously bad about that, but the Jehovah's Witnesses only recently started to allow people to involve secular authorities in abuse cases. Not just child, but other people, adult people. Prior to that, it was, we must keep this in-house at all costs, and preferably never talk about it at all, for the good of the church, which matters more than the good of any individual person.
Right. They weren't looking to protect the children, they were looking to protect the church. And you want to say this organization is good when the church takes priority over the well-being of children. If you have to say that they prioritize their institution over the well-being of children, that is not a good organization automatically at that point. You know, like at that point, I mean, even I mean, I remember talking to somebody in one of the companies I worked there, basically the CIO, the CTO, sorry, the Chief Technology Officer, and they said, if you have a policy in that company which doesn't have a reason for it to be there, just scrap the policy. So if you have a policy that is protect the church, that is only there by tradition and is not helpful, it shouldn't be a policy. But they are more interested in protecting themselves than protecting the people in it. And I think that is especially the most vulnerable people in it. And that's horrifying.
Yeah, that violates any mandate they may have had at any point in time. It's so the entire point of civilization is to protect children. It's to make natural selection a little easier on us. Like, we work together so that we can have children without lions, tigers, and bears eating them. And when a civilization does that job better than another civilization, then it will replace that pre-existing civilization. So that's the natural selection criteria among civilizations, or at least it would be if things worked in a sensible way. But unfortunately, that's not actually what happens. So the entire point of any government, culture, tribe, system of being is to protect the people, and first and foremost, protect the children. An organization that does not do that has no legitimacy at all, in my humble opinion.
Founder of the Legion of Christ movement, Maciel Degollado, was protected from his own catalogue of child abuse, which is horrific. One cannot put on trial so close a friend of the Pope, said Ratzinger. When the allegations could no longer be denied, Maciel was sentenced to a life of prayer and penitence. And Ratzinger described the whole affair, and that of Bernard Law of Boston, to which my colleague also referred, as causing suffering for the church and for me personally. He also said the answer would be to stop homosexuals from being allowed into the church. Now, it's perhaps unfair of me as a gay man to moan at this enormous institution, which is the largest and most powerful church on earth, has over 1 billion, as they like to tell us, members, each one of whom
he's really using that against her, isn't he? I love it. Like, you know, look at this. Instead of pointing out that she's mistaken and quibbling over the small things, he's instead leveraging that exaggeration against her. Like, with all this power, with so many people behind it, they should have the power to make changes and take actions against these individuals, yet they didn't. They are well funded because of the billion that are. You know, he is absolutely using her own words to hang her, and I'm there for it. I love it that he's using this big exaggeration to bite her own, it's biting her in the ass so hard. I absolutely love it. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's freaking fantastic. And I just looked up from CatholicExchange.com. In 2009, there were 1.181 billion Catholics in the world. So just over 1 billion. That's fun.
Church, but may wrestle with them personally, of course. It's a little hard for me to know that I am disordered, or again, to quote Ratzinger, that I'm guilty of a moral evil, simply by fulfilling my sexual destiny as I see it. It's hard for me to be told that I'm evil, because I think of myself as someone who's filled with love, whose only purpose in life was to achieve love, and who feels love for so much of nature and the world and for everything else, and who, like anybody decent and of an education, realizes that in order to achieve and receive love, it's a struggle. It's not one that needs a pope to tell you how to do it. It certainly isn't one who needs a pope to tell you that you're evil. With 6% of all teenage suicides being gay teenage suicides, we certainly don't need the stigmatization, the victimization that leads to the playground bullying when people say you're a disordered, morally evil individual. That's not nice. It isn't nice. The kind of cruelty in Catholic education, the kind of child, let's not call it child abuse, it was child rape, the kind of child rape that went on systematically for so long. Let's imagine that we can overlook this and say it is nothing whatever to do with the structure and nature of the Catholic Church and the twisted, neurotic, and hysterical way that its leaders are chosen. The celibacy, the nuns, the monks, the priesthood. This is not natural and normal, ladies and gentlemen, in 2009.
It's not normal and natural, period. They
Yeah.
look at people like Stephen Fry and say, oh, being homosexual is unnatural. Never mind all the examples in every major group of animals we can observe that it does indeed exist in nature. It's this forced celibacy that is unnatural.
Yeah.
Like an individual
Because we
person.
never observe that. We never observe that. Yeah.
Yeah, an individual person may be celibate by choice or lack of interest. That's fine,
Yeah.
but having it imposed on you by an organization, it's not only unnatural, but obviously untenable. Although I don't know that allowing priests to have spouses or, allowing nuns to feel the Holy Spirit move within them, if you will, I don't know that would stop the child abuse. But it certainly wouldn't make it, like such a viable outlet, I suppose.
Mm.
It really isn't. I'm sorry. For me to be called a pervert by these extraordinarily sexually dysfunctional people, I don't think human history has ever had more.
Bam, hit her again. Hit them again.
I have to.
Just lay down the law on these people. Like, absolutely. Like when we're talking about sexual dysfunction and we know sort of we're beginning to study like sexuality and the study of how humans, sexual behavior in humans, we can study this. It's not this mystical spiritual thing that we can't touch because it's the realm of God. Like, we could study this. And so the idea that we study other animals and as you said, that exists in almost every single animal group you care to name, like that's perfectly natural, except for humans. That's the exception kind of thing. And even though no animal that has sexual desires is stifling them and pushing them down, that's natural just among humans. It's crazy. And so like if you had some person, and it's hard not to say that if you have a person who has natural sexual thoughts, and not only do they not act on it, but they victimize and bully themselves for having the thought, you have to say that is dysfunctional, right? How else can you describe it?
Yeah, and So Nee did change his name again, but we're not
Okay.
animals. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, oh my goodness. It's beyond ridiculous. It's just, you have to laugh at it because it's so far beyond ridiculous.
Yeah.
This is not a problem that necessarily is permanent. I like to believe that in 10 years' time I could come back and argue the opposite. Even though I've talked about the history and the structural problems of this benighted institution, and the cruelty and the unpleasantness it has caused around the world, I have yet to approach one of the subjects dearest to my heart. I've made 3 documentary films on the subject of AIDS in Africa. My particular love is the country of Uganda. It's one of the countries I love most in the world. Been there many times. I've interviewed Yoweri Museveni and his wife Janet before, unfortunately. She suddenly saw God. There was a period when Uganda had the worst incidence of HIV/AIDS in the world. I went to Rakai, the village where it was first spotted. But through an amazing initiative called ABC, abstinence, be faithful, correct use of condoms, those 3. I'm not denying that abstinence is a very good way of not getting AIDS. It really is. It works. So does being faithful. But so do condoms. And do not deny it. And this Pope, not satisfied with saying condoms are against our religion, please consider first abstinence, second being faithful to your partner. He spreads the lie that condoms actually increase the incidence of AIDS. He actually makes sure that aid is conditional on saying no to condoms. I have been to, there's a hospital in Bwindi in the west of Uganda.
And that's some serious bullshit on a lot of different levels. Because it's like, it's not just saying, we are against condoms. It's leveraging your influence on another level. To put it in perspective for here on YouTube, it'd be like if Mark and I had beef and we were like, we're not going to be on each other's channels anymore ever. That would be not really a reasonable way to handle things, but that'd be understandable. But if I went around to Modern Day Debate and Matters Now and Wavelength and all the other channels and told them, if you have that Mark Reed person on, I will see to it your channel ends. And used, my gigantic influence, me being the smaller channel here, but used my influence to blackball Mark across the whole internet.
Way more influence.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about the Catholic Church doing. They're not just throwing their own hissy fit. They're trying to fuck over everyone else who's trying to offer aid and have their own way, because their own way matters more to them than helping people.
Yeah, and plus, he's really undercut, just on the sort of debate tactics front, he's really undercut her thing of, well, we give billions and billions and billions in aid, because now he's pointing out an example where that aid would be removed unless they do something that is so harmful for their own people. At that point, it's not aid, it is a bribe to do harm. Right? Like, if you're going to basically say, hey, our aid is dependent on you disparaging condoms for an AIDS epidemic in your country, what is that? That isn't charity. That's not charity. It's like, sort of saying, hey, going to a homeless person and saying, hey, I'll give you this money, but only if you stab yourself in the foot. That's not charity. But it severely undercuts her sort of thing of, oh, we give so much charity. If that charity is dependent on removing something that's going to save lives, then it's not, you cannot claim that to be charity. You can't.
Absolutely. And now to tangent once more onto a slightly happier topic. I noticed we're summoning a lot of people today. Like, we talked about Nee, and then Nee appeared, and we talked about Purple, and Purple appeared, and now we've mentioned a destroyer of channels, and
Tighten your anus. Tighten your anus.
And Titan appeared. Now Titan actually can and does destroy channels from time to time, but usually for good reason.
Yeah.
where I do quite a lot of work. It is unbelievable, the pain and suffering you see. Now, yes, it is true, abstinence will stop it. It's the strange thing about this church. It is obsessed with sex, absolutely obsessed. Now, they will say, we with our permissive society and our rude jokes are obsessed. No, we have a healthy attitude. We like it, it's fun, it's jolly, because it's a primary impulse. It can
It's
be dangerous
jolly.
and dark
Could
and
you
difficult.
say
It's a bit
anything
like
more
food in that
English?
respect. I mean,
More English. Sex is jolly. Yes, absolutely it is, Stephen Fry. I just love him so much.
Let's have a good shag. Cheerio, pip pip.
Yeah, let's have a shag and be jolly. What? Yes.
Capital.
Yeah.
even more exciting. The only people who are obsessed with food are anorexics and the morbidly obese. And that, in erotic terms, is the Catholic Church in a nutshell.
Yes, we were talking about you. I can't remember why, because my brain is made of
appearing
mush.
when we summon them.
Yeah, but yeah,
Summoning
I
of people,
even
yeah.
mentioned that you might well have a different name again this time, but it would be something that just screamed out Dapper's live chat. Lo and behold, a fulfilled prophecy.
Yeah.
So, all I want to say really is that we're here in the Methodist Hall. I'm not trying to argue against religion on this occasion. I'm not saying there's any... I understand the desire of anybody to seek spiritual rewards in a complex and difficult to understand world. We don't know why we're here, where we're going. We want answers. We love the idea of answers. How marvelous it would be. But there are other choices. There are Quakers. Who could possibly quarrel with a Quaker? With their pacifism, with their openness, with their ease, with their simplicity.
I will once again reference you to the Mormons.
Yeah.
Who rather notoriously did quarrel with the Quakers.
Mm-hmm.
In very unfortunate ways.
Yes, and the Puritarians definitely quarreled with the Quakers.
Yeah, it was Quakers versus Methodists that spurred on the separation of church and state here in the U.S., if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, very interesting. Apparently, I was incorrect. It's a reference to apology is toast to toast. So, I was a little bit off base. Alas, we still have no examples of fulfilled prophecy. I was in the neighborhood. I mean, it's still recognizably you, so there's that.
With their refusal to tell anybody what the dogma and what isn't, even with Methodists also. I'm not saying Protestantism is the answer against Catholicism. I am merely saying there are all kinds of ways we can search for the truth. You do not need this imperial panoply of marble and gold. Do you know who would be the last person ever to be accepted as a prince of the church? The Galilean carpenter, that Jew. They would kick him out before he tried to cross the threshold. He would be so ill at ease in the church. That simple and remarkable man, if he said the things that he was said to have said, what would he think? What would he think of St. Peter's? What would he think of the wealth and the power and the self-justification and the wheedling apologies?
And the giant implement of torture on behind the altar and on everyone's necklaces and oof.
Yeah, like that's sort of one of the Bill Hicks jokes that maybe that's, it's weird that Christians wear the cross of Jesus, the thing that tortured him to death, to signify him coming back. And it's like, well, maybe he hasn't shown up yet because everyone's still wearing crosses, He's like, Jesus is like, Dad, they're still wearing crosses. I don't want to go back there. Like they're still, why? It's bizarre.
Yeah, much like the cannibalism by magic ritual they mentioned earlier. I've said before, and I still think it's a valid point, that if I were Jesus and my followers had a weekly ritual pretending to eat of my flesh, I'd be like, listen, not only did they kill me once before, but they're still practicing ritual symbolic cannibalism of my body. These
Yes.
fuckers scare me. I am not going back there.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a very
What would
good point. That's a very good point. And drinking my blood as well. Like,
Yes,
the hell?
yes. We must drink the blood because that's exactly what the Old Testament points to. That's how we do things. Yeah.
Yeah.
you think
Oof.
of a man who calls himself the father, a celibate who dared to lecture people on what family values are? What would he think of any of that? He would be horrified. But there is a solution. There is an answer. There is redemption available for all of us and any one of us. And for the Catholic Church, funnily enough, I think it's a novel by Morris West. The Pope could decide that all this power, all this wealth, this hierarchy of princes and bishops and archbishops and priests and monks and nuns could be sent out in the world with money and art treasures to put them back in the countries that they once raped and violated, whose original systems of animism and belief and simplicity they told would take them straight to hell. They could give that money away, and they could concentrate on the apparent essence of their belief. And then I would stand here and say the Catholic Church may well be a force for good in the world. But until that day, it is not. Thank you.
Wow, bam. Nice close.
Yeah, that was a solid landing.
That was a really good. Yep. I like a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would personally, if I'd written that, the only suggestion I could make to make it hit a little harder is to say to give away the wealth and yada yada, the way their savior said to do. Like really
good.
hammer in that Jesus said, you give away
Yeah.
your possessions if you want to follow me.
Yeah. And that's the baffling thing about, well, not just the Catholic Church, but also the prosperity gospel people over in America. Like, they basically are saying that, hey, having wealth is holy against everything that, I don't know. The mental gymnastics you have to do in order to get from Jesus saying, give away all your possessions, don't be rich, basically, to if you are rich, then you have been chosen by God, is baffling. Like, how do you get there? We have interpretations of the Bible that we kind of go, what the? But that one is kind of, how could you possibly get there from the sort of teachings of Jesus kind of thing? It's just beyond me.
Yeah, it's not even like a one-off. Like Jesus doubles down on that
Yeah.
parable about the rich man fitting through the eye of a needle, or a camel fitting through an eye of a needle.
Well, that's sort of a mistranslation. It's a camel in Greek, which means it means a very thick rope kind of thing. It doesn't actually mean a camel. It's not actually the animal, but the principle's the same. Like, we're talking about, a very thick hempen rope fitting through the eye of a needle. It can't do it, kind of thing. So
Yeah. Shameful. It's just shameful.
yeah. But and I mean, it's not necessarily something I would condemn them for. I'm not going to say, hey, organizations shouldn't seek out money, or you shouldn't try and be wealthy, or whatever. I think that I'm not 100% on board with this idea of, well, if you're wealthy, you're automatically a bad person, because in order to get that wealth in society, you must have done bad things. I'm not 100% on board with that. But at the end of the day, you can't take a moral high ground because you're wealthy. And that's essentially what they do. We're chosen of God. We've got this money. We've got this thing. At that point, what are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah. But mind you, I mean, the prosperity gospel, I don't think it's that popular. I think, really it's certain areas it is, but I don't think it's that popular. It's more just disgusting how one person, like Joel Osteen, makes so much money off of it. It's gross,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I don't know that there's that many specific subscribers to it. It's mostly preying on desperate people in their times of immense need. It's basically lottery mentality, right? I'm
Yeah.
in really dire straits. I can't make my rent, but if I send the portion of rent I have to Joel Osteen or Kenneth Copeland or whatever, then maybe God will come through for me. It's last ditch desperation to try to get by, and they take advantage of that. Obviously, they do have rather large followings. Joel Osteen has that gigantic church that he fills week after week. But in the grand scheme of things, I think it's mostly just other evangelicals that they're poaching on in their desperation. Which, in and of itself, I mean, that if there were such a thing as a legitimate ecumenical crime, that should be one.
Okay.
Well, they are very happy about that speech.
Yeah.
So that's all
It
four
was
speakers.
good.
I think there's a rebuttal section, but I don't know for sure.
No, there's just questions after this because I went through the whole thing. I left them in depending on how much time we have, but it is just questions after this. There is no rebuttal as far as I'm aware. I don't think so.
Okay. Is there?
Is there a rebuttal section?
I don't know. It's been a very long time since I watched this debate.
Yeah, I don't think there is. I think they just sort of made the speeches kind of thing.
All right. Well, we can go through some questions. See what I know. There's at least a couple other hitch slaps that haven't come up yet that are in there somewhere, so we can see what we can find.
Well, I didn't edit that down, the question section down. I just left it in case we had time. So I'm not sure how much we'll go. But let's just go. Let's just do it. Let's just do it.
Yeah. See what we can. We may not get all of it because there's
Yeah.
quite a lot, but we'll see.
Well, Stephen Fry, thank you very much. So you've heard all our four speakers. It's going to be your turn, the audience next. And I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about what you want to ask our panelists, any questions or comments you may wish to make. Because I'm going to give you now the result of that vote that you all gave when you were coming in here to Central Hall. And there are about 2,100 people in the auditorium today, well over that actually. And this is how you all voted. Now, probably no surprise, because you can kind of tell from the applause that we've been getting from...
This is a really neat thing that it's not exclusive to these guys, but I wish more debates did it, where they poll what the audience thinks at the beginning and then poll them again afterwards to see how many minds were changed by the debate.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well,
Robin
I mean,
Webster
it might be...
since $2.
It might be something to suggest if people are like, I know that people want to sort of get an atheist debate channel up and running, and I think I want to turn my mind to it and sort of work on it, because a lot of people have suggested it, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of momentum going. I've always sort of said, and really what my stance has been is, I don't feel comfortable running a debate channel if I'm debating in it. It seems too much of a, you know what I mean? Like, it seems like, well, how could we be neutral if I'm actually debating in it, kind of thing. And I enjoy debating too much. I got to be honest with you. I would be sad if I could not debate people. I'm really sorry. I know that people want me to start, like Peter's been hassling me to start a channel, but I want to debate, and I don't think it's proper that I run a channel and debate on that channel. I'm sorry, I just don't think it's proper. I think it's, it's a bad look, maybe optically. There might not be any favoritism, but it's too easy to leverage favoritism against someone participating in the debate channel that they run.
Yeah.
But,
I tend to agree. Like, that's one of my criticisms against that Andrew fellow from the Crucible, because he both debates and runs the channel, which creates a conflict of interest kind of thing. But c'est la vie. But yeah, as Robin pointed out, they do have a second vote to determine how many minds got
that's
changed.
at the very end, and I was gonna sort of say go to the end at the end of it. Yeah, but thank you, Robin. I appreciate it. You're absolutely right. To go to the end to see the effect of what the debate had, which is really good.
Yeah.
So,
however far we
absolutely.
get, we'll definitely check on that.
Absolutely. Conflict of interest, yes. But at the same time, I really would love to see an atheist debate channel, and I'm currently talking with, well, I'm going to be sort of talking with somebody and running through what we need to set one up. So I want to help people set up their own channels and sort of, get something set. Because I see, like, for instance, Standing for Truth, he does really well because he just does debates, basically. Why can't the atheists do that? There doesn't seem to be any reason. There's a number of problems that would have to be overcome, and sort of doing debates and trying to get into debates, I think I can sort of pinpoint what some of them are. So I would like to help. And that's I think Rodney was talking about it from Tell Me More. So I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I think it just kind of takes more of a coordinated effort kind of thing, because Nara from Counter Apologetics with Nara the Atheist, he's changed his channel name a couple of times, but he's tried to put together a couple of things. I've debated B.S. Lewis. It was a fun debate because B.S. Lewis was representing Judaism and I was representing Christianity over whether Jesus was the Messiah. That was a trippy debate, but yeah, it's difficult. Bree's been working on putting together a debate project with Rodney. I take that to mean that Bree's part of that effort.
Yeah, I've got to get involved because I really have sort of sat back and seen how it's developed, kind of thing. But I do have to get involved in that and sort of help in some way. Yeah. I will moderate from time to time, Katina. I will, but I think I'm just talking specifically about creating my own debate channel, because I did toy with it, and I do have actually a channel set aside, like sort of reserving the name, if you will, to see how it goes. I can always hand the name to somebody else. So I came up with the idea of symposium debates. To sort of add some class, I guess. Maybe that's warranted, maybe it isn't. But I might sort of offer to delete that channel and someone else can take the name if they like the name. If not, that's cool too.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, having your name on board, I'm sure would be very helpful, because you, like it or not, you are one of the bigger names in YouTube debate space at the moment.
I don't see that, to be honest with you. I don't, but thank you. I really, I was talking with Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels on the wavelength last night, and sort of talking about imposter syndrome kind of thing, right? And I think I suffer from that a lot. People go, "Oh, you're one of the biggest names in debate," and I'm like, "You've got to be joking! Like, there's no way. I don't feel that way. I really don't. I feel like just a cheeky Australian doing what I can. No one takes me seriously, kind of thing." But that's. But I really do appreciate it, Ems. I absolutely. Down under debates. Yeah, I mean, most people won't be down under, and plus, no one takes Australians seriously. I'd like to have, like, a serious debate channel. Well, there used to be Snake Was Right's channel, the Debate Cafe, and they used to have very structured, serious debates kind of thing. Unfortunately, most of the people they could get weren't, like Jill, weren't exactly, what you'd consider premier debaters. But yeah, I am. I definitely am a cheeky Australian. Absolutely. I wear that badge with pride, sir. Or ma'am, I'm sorry if you are. I wear blokes with B. Wow. I really want. Well, I really want to see women as well in the debate sphere. I don't think that they're represented enough. And it's difficult because there is a lot of debate bro mentality out there, and that level of aggressiveness is really hard for some women to overcome. Others not so much, and that's fine. It's just I would like to see more women represented, but
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a few. some, I guess it's true for most debaters on average that they tend to stick within their key subjects. Like Diddley, for example, only does debates on like sex work related type stuff.
Right. Yep.
But that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
her thing, so she knows a lot about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense.
Our speakers, just perhaps where you all stand. But this is how you actually voted. The Catholic Church, the motion is the Catholic Church is a force for good in the world. In favour of the motion were 678. 678 agree with that. Against the motion that the Catholic Church is a force for good was...
How hilarious would it have been if it had been 666?
That would have been great. Yeah, that would have been the cherry on the top. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
1,102. Big difference. However, 346 of you were undecided. Now, I've been taxing my arithmetical abilities here, and I see that it's a difference of 424. 346 were undecided. So, Archbishop and Anne Widdecombe, you're going to have to not win over the undecided, but actually convert some from the other side. So you need to get 425 over to win the motion.
I don't think they did that. I don't think they did that.
I dare say. I mean, I do recall the outcome of this debate from before.
Oh, do you? Okay.
But it's not looking good for him at this juncture. If only there were like some kind of I don't know, supernatural entity on their side or something.
I know from watching it they didn't do well. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I know that the Catholic Church did not come out ahead in this one. Like, they really did not.
Yeah.
I don't think they didn't break neutral either. I'll spoil it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a few hundred behind. Let's see if we can sway any opinions here amongst all of you by listening to some points that you wish to raise with the panel. And then we're going to ask you to vote again, and I'm going to ask our speakers to make their closing statements. Now, put your hand up if you want to speak. If you go on, I've got a little button here that will render you inaudible. So please keep your comments to the point. You're standing, sir, so you must be terribly keen and enthusiastic. So I will come to you first. Say your name and designation if you wish to, if you think it may be relevant.
My name is Keith Wood. I'm the Executive Director of the National Secular Society. And I've just come back from the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, where I put to the United Nations Human Rights Council the fact that the Holy See, its alter ego of the Catholic Church, has broken 5 articles of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Just one of those, because it's supposed to produce annual reports, and it's 12 years behind in doing those. It did not deny, the Holy See came back and did not deny any of the charges that I made on the 22nd of September. Okay. All it said...
You're losing us. What is your point?
My point is that it did not deny breaking 5 articles of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child on child abuse. And I think it's disgraceful that it should be allowed to do it, and that the international community should let it get away with it.
Okay,
I mean, it's a point. It's not something like really good for discourse.
It's very easy to change that into a question. You know, like, if the Catholic Church is a force for good, how do you justify it not fulfilling its obligations, you know, and just put it in like that? It is very easy to change it into a question. I just don't understand why people, you know, go up there at a Q&A to make points, because you can really hammer it home a lot more with a question. I don't, you know, I don't know why.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting that as of March 2024, 196 countries have ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child.
Yeah.
196 countries, making it the most widely ratified human rights treaty in history, and notably, glaringly absent from the signatory nations, which include Saudi Arabia, China, Iran. Absent is the United States.
Wow. Wow, that's insane.
Mm-hmm.
How do you justify that? Please tell me Australia ratified it, please.
I'd have to check the full list to see if it shows up. New Zealand is on there, so I imagine Australia did.
I would imagine so. I would like
Oh,
to. Yeah, Australia.
shortcut. There are only 2 countries that are eligible to be signatories that have not signed or have not ratified: the United States and Somalia.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So if you're on a list with Somalia under human rights, you've got problems.
It's a bit of an oof.
Yeah, we ratified it. The Convention on the Rights of the Child in 17th of December 1990. So 34 years ago.
Yeah, so if you're a U.S. citizen, maybe take a second, write a letter, make a phone call, and ask why. Perhaps. I mean, we know
they've apparently
why.
been a signatory on it. The United States apparently has been a signatory on it. They just haven't ratified it, and I don't know why.
It's because treaties in the U.S. have to be can't just sign them; they have to be ratified by our Senate, and our Senate often has Republicans in it who are super consumed by this idea of parents' rights trumping child rights. That's yeah. You probably have noticed in several of the ongoing debates, the forced birth thing, a 12-year-old being forced to carry her rapist baby, or trans health care, all the various things. Rights of the parent supersede apparently everything.
Well, apparently the Holy See ratified it in 1990, but his leverage is that they were supposed to produce reports and did not.
Yeah, they're just not filling out their tax returns. So we'll see if they I don't know if they're going to address that as a question or just let it stand and move on to the next person. But yeah, I thought that was worth tangenting to point out. And while we're on unrelated subjects, I put out a poll earlier on when the poll got brought up here. Who do you think won the debate? And the results are 0% went with Catholics. 53% said atheists, and you might notice there's a lot of percent remaining. 46%, due to rounding error, 46% said Mark won. So yeah, good job, Mark.
I almost had it too.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I should have voted for myself.
Always vote for yourself. What were you?
Yeah, I know.
Thank you. We'll take another question. There's a lady here.
I would like to ask Mr. Hitchens if he is only against the Catholic Church or against all religions.
That would be all religions. I don't even have to.
I'm just going to take one more. No, just stay here. Okay. Anybody upstairs? Can I see? I'm sorry, the lights are in my eyes.
Hi there. This is a question for Christopher Hitchens. Many people today feel that we're really living in some kind of moral crisis, and you can see that all around us. Now, if one thing the Catholic Church does do for good, in my opinion, is give us the 10 Commandments, a very basic, obvious way of giving us some kind of moral guidance. Would you not agree with that?
But by the laughter of the crowd, I think you've had your question answered already.
Yeah, first of all, that's Judaism. That's Judaism that brought the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
But also, the Christian churches kind of infamously do not follow the 10 Commandments. And also, as Uba Sweat points out, which 10 Commandments? The first set, the second set? What are we talking about here? There's a few issues there. So yeah, let's see how that goes.
Okay, well, let's get a response.
Yeah, it must be a bad feeling when you stand up there and your question is met by just laughter from all sides. You kind of suspect that, hey, you're the crowd does not agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's probably one of the people who voted pro-Catholic in the beginning there. I don't know. And they're gathering batches of questions, and then they'll answer them in groups. For some reason, I don't know. It seemed.
I must say, I really like the moderator. She is all business, like she is just, let's get to the point. Let's get these questions. Let's go to here. Go to. Love it. Absolutely love it. Absolutely in charge. I telling Christopher Hitchens, note, we're gathering another one. Just on top of things, I really love her control over the way the proceedings are going. And, some person who's making a point for 10 hours, like, we've got to move on. Is there a point to this guy? Just fantastic moderation there. Just have to be noted.
Yeah. I really enjoy that. That's a thing that could definitely we could use more of in the debate world.
Yes.
Like, get to your point, please. We have lots of people who want to talk. Please just say your thing so we can go.
Yeah.
So, 10 Commandments. Christopher Hitchens, that question was directed to you. I don't think the Catholic Church has a monopoly on the 10 Commandments, but nevertheless,
is this on?
It is on, just saying.
Am I audible? Yeah. The lady in front began by asking me, do I reserve this condemnation only for the Holy Roman Church and not for other Catholics, for example, like Byzantine Catholics? And
Christopher, how dare you? How dare you answer a different question than the one you were asked? For shame. Bad form.
Well, it is the quickest to answer, really. It is a very, very easy answer. So I think,
Protestants and so on. I think they're all the same equivalent glimpses of the identical untruth. And I might use my answer to just say something about Anne Widdecombe. I knew we wouldn't get through without talk about money being given away on supposedly humanitarian projects in the Third World. You never don't get that. You never get the admission that it's done to proselytize for religion either, which my friends at Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, for example, or Amnesty International don't do. They don't proselytize. They do it for the sake of their fellow creatures.
Yeah, that's another good one. Amnesty International.
Amnesty International.
They don't often make a lot of lists, but they make some waves though, and that's very, very valuable. It's not just the developed world either. Like, Amnesty International is very active in the American criminal justice system because we're so bad at justice in our justice system.
But if I'm debating with a Mormon and I say, are you serious? Joseph Smith got a special revelation on plates of gold in upstate New York, and I ridicule the absurdity of the Church of Latter-day Saints, he's going to say to me, boy, you should see our missionaries in Bolivia, though. It's always the same. Are you going to grant this to Hamas? The whole claim of Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza is they provide social services. Is this claim valid for them too? What nonsense. No. The proper study of mankind is man, and the proper application of humanitarianism is humanistic, in my judgment. Now, of the commandments, the first, I can't list them exactly in order, I have them in my head. The first 2 or 3 are entirely about fearing the author of the orders. Entirely about being terrified of someone who you're enjoined to love. I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but the idea of compulsory love has always struck me as a bit shady, especially if you're ordered to love someone who you absolutely must fear. So the first 3 are, look out for me and keep at least one day of mine where you'll be terrified full time. Wait a second. Well, it is 10 Commandments, darling.
All right, yes, I know, but I do want to give the other side a chance to come in.
Okay.
Have you made your point there? Okay, Anne Widdecombe, 10 Commandments, firm bedrock of moral
Yeah, she's good.
Yes, but as Christopher Hitchens took the opportunity to reply to a point I'd made, I'm going to take the opportunity to reply to a point that Stephen made, which is very simply this. He says the church is obsessed with sex. No, its critics are obsessed with sex. There's no sex in the creed. There's no...
That's a nuh-uh, I'm rubber, you're glue.
No, you,
I really should make a bingo card sometime, but at least, we've got some memes to play with.
Yeah.
Do we have the Uno reverse in Yeah, there it is. It's in the channel emojis. Good job, members, on voting for that one, because that one, it comes up a lot.
But the rest of us are just getting on with our day. We've got bills to pay. We've got things to do. We have a sex life. That's it. It's not a great big deal to us. Like, if somebody is over there having gay sex with the person they love, I don't even think about it. It doesn't even come to my mind. It's just, oh, they're gay. That's cool. That's it. Or they're married, that's cool. They're in a polyamorous relationship, that's cool. They're doing their thing. It occupies a 1% of my mind for 1 second. It is the religious person that goes, oh, that's against the, and they think about, so much thought about what implications it has, and is it good for the moral fiber, and does God look at? Nobody else is doing that. Nobody, right? Nobody else is obsessing that much over somebody else's sex life. I don't think I obsess that much over my own sex life.
Absolutely. And as Purple points out, all the rules, all the reactionary nonsense, the political measures that are being foisted, they all have to do with telling other people who they can boink and how they can boink and in what position and on what day of the week. And it's holy
getting
crap.
Outraged about them not doing it the way they say. Who died and made you the arbiter of what sex is correct and what isn't? Jesus, apparently.
I was going to say, apparently, according to them.
Well, unless you can show that's the case, I don't give a crap.
Yeah, it's fucking wild. The stones on this woman to Uno or reverse the thing that's obviously the case, but okay.
Sex in the Lord's Prayer. There's no sex in the liturgy. But when the critics start on the Catholic Church, all they can talk about is sex. But of sex more later. If we can come to the Ten Commandments, I would have thought it quite obvious that the Ten Commandments set out a blueprint for a moral and successful society.
Well, okay, we've all addressed that numerous times. It does not. It's very bad at that. It's very bad at that. But also, let us not forget the writings of Paul, almost half of which aren't forged, which outright state, as long as you're not circumcised, none of the old laws apply to you. All you have to do is pay lip service to Jesus, and you're good. So how can you claim moral authority from the Ten Commandments, even if they did actually present good morals?
Right.
And at the same time, out of the other side of your mouth, say, but you don't need to follow them because you have Jesus.
Right.
Let us just look at some of them. Honor thy father and thy mother. Think of today's disrespect. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery.
Yes, let's thou shalt not kill, and then immediately go kill all the people in the land of Canaan.
Yeah. And because it's not thou shalt not kill, it's thou shalt not murder, like legally murder. It's not necessarily kill. And honor thy mother and father. There's some parents that do not deserve to be honored. You know, you have some horrible parents who they deserve to be reported to the police and taken down, like the woman, the Christian woman, I might add, tying up her children on thingos and then running a channel about child discipline. Now, you hear about that woman? I can't remember her name. I'll look up her name.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy things. It's just I've got different things in my head fighting about
Ruby Frank.
Which things should come out.
Yeah, Ruby Frank, right? They're now sentenced to 4 terms of 1 to 15 years each. She basically pled guilty to starving and abusing her children, and she was giving child advice to people on YouTube. That is not a parent that deserves to be honored by their children. That's a parent that deserves to go to jail.
Yeah, and there's different commandment back on thou shalt not murder. It has to be thou shalt not murder, because thou shalt not kill. It doesn't. They infer kill humans, but it doesn't say that. Like, you can't tell people thou shalt not kill, and then also as part of the law explain to them how they're to slaughter calves and birds and things in order to offer
Yep.
them as proper sacrifice. Like, you're killing to do that. These commandments contradict each other. What the fuck?
And let's apply the 10 Commandments to that Ruby Frank case. What in the 10 Commandments prevents the parents? Because there's something prevent in there. Honor thy mother and thy father, preventing the children from going, what they did is a child escaped from confinement and went and told another adult, basically dobbed in or snitched on their parents, right? So that is covered in the 10 Commandments as don't do that to your parents. You have to honor them. But what in the 10 Commandments prevents them from abusing and starving their children?
Yeah, it's the same
Nothing.
problem as with the Children's Rights Treaty. Like
Right.
they're focused on honoring the parents, whereas
Yes.
the rest of us are focused on taking care of the children. And Purple raises a good point. My father was also an alcoholic and occasionally tried to be abusive. There was one moment in particular that my mother kept reminding me of during my teenage years, where he came home drunk and belligerent one night, and he was making a big stink and threatening my mother. So even though I was a child, as you may recall, I grew up on a farm, so I was a little stronger than the average child at the time. I told him to stop, and he said, "What are you going to do about it?" So I threw him through the front door, and he spent the night out on the lawn. And my mother said, "You're going to grow up to be a respectable man." And that was one of the moments that sticks in your mind, because I just looked at the door and I went, "No, if that's what it means to be a man, I am not. That's not me. No."
Well, I don't think that's what it means to be a man. I think that there's too much of that toxic masculinity built into the patriarchal system, that in order to be a man, you have to sort of crush others beneath your feet and all of this power stuff. I think it's a mockery of what it really means to be that kind of person. I think it's awful. So, but it's out there and it's pervasive, and you have people like Tate reinforcing these toxic masculine ideas, and a lot of it is insecurity.
Yeah, it's fear. That's the reason for the church's control too, is fear.
Yeah.
Like, what will people do once they realize they've been lied to, that they've been traumatized their whole lives, and they've wasted all this time and all this money and done so much harm to so many other people? How will they react when they find out?
Yeah.
Well, luckily for them, most people just do better. You learn and then you do better. But not everyone would.
And thou shalt not covet. Tell that to the bankers with their bonuses.
Thou shalt not covet, from the representative of the of the church with castles and golden thrones and shit.
Yep.
The hypocrisy. I need a hypocrisy button. It's wow.
Yep.
I actually
suck,
think that
lady.
if you look at the moral precepts of the Ten Commandments, they're as relevant now as they were then.
Okay, Archbishop, do you want to come in briefly on this? And that point about the rights of the child, that's something that's come up quite a bit.
Well, first of all, the United Nations conventions that he's talking about, they need to be well understood. And it is a fact that there is not a unanimity even in the interpretation of the content and the meaning of many of those conventions he's referring to. I am not particularly personally conversant with the issues he is raising, the 5 accusations that he has laid against the Holy See, but I'm sure that the permanent observer of the Holy See in Geneva would have given adequate answer to his question. As for defense of children, taking care of children, I think we don't have to go to the United Nations to learn about that. Oh, by the way, the 10 Commandments are in the Bible, but my father knew it before he became a Christian. All African religions recognized those basic norms of morality. Everybody.
I'm skeptical, Because if you're calling the Ten Commandments the basic norms of morality, like I can see, don't steal, don't kill. Those are human things. Every civilization not only has those, but has to have those in order to be a civilization. They're fundamental. But have no other gods before me? Like that's a thing that every African religion recognized. What? I don't know. No, I don't think so. I do not think so.
Yeah, I doubt. And plus the Ten Commandments, they weren't really new when they were put down. Like there's a covenant of, I can't remember what it is, covenant of or the covenant. It sort of is very, very. I can't remember what it is. It's basically an earlier version, but with a lot of, if somebody kills somebody, you kill them kind of thing. But it's very similar. These ideas, they're not as novel as the Christians think they are. Like the love thy neighbor is not this novel thing that Jesus just came up with. It had been around for a long time. Love thy neighbor as thyself, basically, or do unto others, for instance, is not a new idea. It's something that has been around for a while. Same with the Ten Commandments. It's not like the people didn't know that it was wrong to kill somebody until Moses came down the mountain with the commandments. Like, it's not like that, because Cain and Abel, one killed the other and it was wrong, right? Like, it's really, really silly.
So that's interesting.
I'll find out what it was.
The covenant of apparently is the covenant between between El, the Lord of gods, and Abram before he was renamed Abraham, and it's recounted apparently in Genesis 12 1-3, which says, "The Lord had said to Abram," this is New International Version because I don't speak Hebrew, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. All the peoples on earth will be blessed through you." So there's a lot of similarity to what would later become the Ten Commandments on that one. It's the whole honor me and all good things come through me. That's why half of the Ten Commandments are about, Yahweh, but at the time, Genesis was written, Yahweh and El were still separate gods. There was a Hebrew pantheon, but that's a whole other discussion for another time.
Nobody knows that.
All right. Let's take some more questions from the floor. Okay.
Don't need the Bible for that.
Chat there.
Hi. This is a very simple question for Anne Widdecombe. You might think it may be a naive question. If so, I'd be very happy to be educated. Why is it wrong for a woman to become a priest, but perfectly acceptable for a woman such as yourself to become an MP?
Okay, thanks. We'll come to that in a moment.
Solid.
Good question. Yeah.
I think we're going to go.
Very solid.
Here next. Yeah.
Hello. It's a query for Anne and the Archbishop. Anne raised a point regarding the billions that are poured into Africa for famine relief, aid and things like that. She also mentioned the billions that are raised in collections. What is the point there? Are you trying to say that the billions that are poured into Africa are raised by collections? Because we don't seem to see any dissolution of the wealth that is sat in the Vatican and in the palaces of the Vatican. And coupled with that, I respect your faith, I respect the message you give, but why, to pass that message on, do you need the finery that you wear? Do you need the palace of the Vatican?
Okay. Point made. I think we're going to go here. Yeah.
Hello. My name is Matthew Hampton, and I've got a brief question for the Archbishop. Sorry, can you hear me?
No. Now we can. Start again.
Oh, thank goodness. Archbishop, of which current Roman Catholic policy are you most ashamed?
Are you most ashamed of? I'll repeat it. Okay, let's stick with the Archbishop on that. So, Archbishop, which current Catholic policy, this question is, are you most ashamed of?
I don't know whether you're serious in that question or you just want to provoke. Because if all our Catholic policies are not just dreamt overnight by the Pope or anybody. If it is a Catholic policy, it is reasonable, it is based on our traditions and scriptures, and there's none about which I'm ashamed, if that is the answer to your question.
Okay, and the other question...
That's such a frickin' Ken Ham cop-out. What evidence would convince you? Nothing. Because I'm right, preconception.
I'm not ashamed of any current policy at all. I have no... It is obviously right. Yeah, okay.
Yep, there's nothing we could do even a little bit better. It's all perfect the way God intended.
Question about, I think the Vatican is worth something like, is it $2.5 billion it has, and it invests it all over the place and so on. Do you need all that money? Was that question up there, all the finery and all the rest of it?
I was trying to listen, I couldn't quite get...
His question was, you talked about the billions in aid that goes to Africa, dispensed by Catholic organizations one way or another, but what about the wealth of the Vatican itself? Do you need all that money?
If it means that they should carry St. Peter's Basilica to Africa, that's not the answer. And I don't know what billions of that he says the Vatican has.
So to answer that question...
come on!
The Vatican is estimated to be worth approximately $30 billion US.
Yeah.
Which, weirdly, is a drop in the bucket compared to what the LDS Church has, but it's still more money than existed less than 100 years ago.
Yeah, and I think the Seventh-day Adventist is actually the richest one, mostly due to the companies that holds.
Really?
I can't remember if it's true. I think so, yeah, because they own like Sanitarium and all of these companies that have done very well.
Day Advent. Okay. That comes up as 15.6
Oh, no,
billion.
it is Latter-day Saints. Yeah, no, you're right. It is Latter-day Saints. Insane. Maybe that's why I keep getting copyright claims from the LDS.
Holy crap. So that's the last time I had data. The LDS Church was over 100 billion. Estimated.
Oh, no, it's over 200 now.
236 billion.
Yep.
Wow. And that's as of July 2023. Wowzers. That's mind-blowing money.
Built on bullshit.
Because of this world, I think I'm not in the Vatican. We know where they are, and they're not coming to Africa. On the contrary, Africa has been sucked dry by those people, those multinationals. They are the ones who should be bringing our money back to us. I think we are...
That's a really, really ironic statement, because while he's not wrong that the multinationals are sucking Africa dry, that's just following in the proud tradition of Catholicism and the other colonial efforts that fucked over Africa in the first place.
Yeah.
We are targeting the wrong place. I come from Africa, and the funds that come from...
It's straight up whataboutism. It's, well, don't look at us, look at these other guys who are doing the same thing, but worse than we are. Unreal.
Church agencies, for us, are very important. We know that normally in most of those countries, we should not even be looking up to people to help us. We should be helping ourselves, and we're working towards that.
And one specific question to you. Why not women priests in the Catholic Church?
Well, no, the specific question was, why is it not all right for a woman to be a priest, but it is for a woman to be an MP? That was the specific question.
All right.
And I have to say to you, I mean, that really does betray a vast ignorance.
What?
Wow.
What are you talking about?
The stones on this woman.
I know. It is brazenly like, well, you're the ignorant one, in fact. What? Why? Like, it's just like, okay, well, they're both positions of authority. Why will God allow them to dictate public policy as an MP, but feels that they're not good enough to be in a position to be a spiritual leader? What the fuck are you talking about, lady?
Maya, of course we're still going. We've only been at it for almost 3.5 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, we should probably wrap up soon. I've got some stuff to do, but yeah, we'll go for a little bit more.
Yeah, that's fair. And yeah, Jedi. Of course
Yeah.
you're late, but it's okay because videos like this you can always rewind if you're so inclined.
Yeah. No. We'll just start from the start and do the 3 hours again. How about that? Just for left-handed Jedi.
That's fair.
Absolutely.
I mean, now that we've rehearsed it, we can probably do it again faster.
Oh, probably better. Better.
Yeah.
With maybe more tangents.
Now with extra tangents.
Extra tangents.
A member of Parliament, male or female, does not stand in persona Christi at the point of consecration. The Church is not about careers. The Church is about vocations and about theology. And I do not believe it possible for a woman at the point of consecration. Woman's ministry is different. This is specific to the priesthood. It probably won't be understood by a lot of the people who don't understand the theology of the priesthood. But I don't believe that it is any more possible for a woman to represent Christ at the point of consecration than for a man to be the Virgin Mary.
Okay, thanks. Lots of...
Wow.
Did that
Why
even
am I
make
getting-
sense?
I am so getting Mrs. Bouquet vibes from Keeping Up Appearances. If you've ever seen that kind of thing, like it's this really poor woman who tries to make herself seem really, really rich kind of thing because her name's Mrs. Bucket, but like she calls it Bouquet. It's actually hilarious. Was it Keeping Up Appearances or is that the other show?
I don't know. I'm so out of touch.
Yeah,
with
it is
television
Keeping Up
stuff.
Appearances. Oh, that's English television. So yeah.
Oh goodness. Left-handed Jedi, late but gifting 5 Emberships. Appreciate that. Those went to Ni, Lunar Regolith Phantasmal Terrain, Ed Kitson.
Oh, Maya
Titan
got hit.
Uranus.
Oh, and Titan got hit. Nice. Good shot.
Christopher Fisher and Tenzil from Bismol. So fantastic. Do enjoy the random. I'm clicking all the buttons. Random selection of all the various custom emojis, which I will once again remind everyone: members get to vote on new emojis when they unlock. It's not the only perk, but it's a pretty cool perk. But
It's
yeah.
a pretty cool perk.
Lots of hands up.
Yeah,
and I really do want
Vonrek,
to
we
go around
will
everybody, so
show
can-
the results of the second vote before we close the stream. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
we'll jump ahead and find it.
Yeah, but I
There's-
might close it. I might have to go. Just reading this thing. So, yeah. Did you want to do more, or did you want to wind it up?
Oh yeah, I mean this is as good a spot as any.
Yeah.
They've answered the most recent, and the questions do go on for a while.
A long while, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's see if we can find the final vote here.
Just go to the very end and back a little bit. It's like right at the end, as far as I recall. Yeah, there it was.
Okay.
Young people and being told that once you wear this, you are safe. The fact is that when that is done, AIDS is increased, not decreased. I think this is been proved from epidemiological research. It's not talking about whether condom protects from one act, but when it comes to a whole lot of people, like the situation in most countries of Africa, and the situation of health services, right down to simple aspirin, then we know what we are talking about. Finally, we have this event has been very useful. I'm very happy to have been here. We never said that the Catholic Church is perfect. Some questions were proposed.
Isn't that itself a problem? I realize he's just finishing a statement before we get to the vote, but perfect God, all-powerful God, perfect word, infallible book, infallible Pope. How is it even possible that the Catholic Church is not perfect if the things they claim are true? The fact they're not perfect, to me, is pretty clear, powerful, indisputable evidence that the things they claim are not true.
Especially when they're claiming moral objectivity. They're claiming to have objective morals. It's not up to anybody's opinion, but instead are set in stone. They know what the right thing to do in all situations is. That's what morals are. It's what we ought to do. So to have so many instances where they said, well, yeah, we said we had moral objectivity, but we were wrong. Then how do you have access to those objective morals?
Yeah, it's an oof.
To the Archbishop and think about it, we continue to do our best to be as close as we can to Jesus Christ and what he wants us to be, and to constantly be a force for good in the world. And I thank you.
Archbishop, thank you. Audience, you've all voted again. Now, the moment of truth panel. Let me remind everybody that before the debate, when everybody came in, this is how you voted. For the motion that the Catholic Church is a force for good in the world, 678. Against the motion, 1,102. And the undecideds, the don't knows, were 346. This is how you voted subsequently. For the motion that the Catholic Church is a force for good, from 678, it's gone to 268.
Wow, that hurts.
Yep.
That's more than a 20% change, I dare say. It's
yeah.
less than half what it was before.
Yeah,
Maybe
I don't
it's 20% of the total number of voters.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it was. Hang on, let's do some quick math.
That's a big fucking owie. Like they
Oh, it's okay, Titan. Everyone makes mistakes, mate. I was just messaging Titan to say, what did left-handed Jedi do? Like, why? I don't see anything. It's just like, it's just a mistake. So, we apologize. Left-handed Jedi. Titan did not mean to do that. So sorry.
Alas. Yeah, it
happens.
that's happened to me.
It's happened to me too.
Slip. Yeah.
I've hidden somebody without meaning to. Absolutely has happened. No problem. All right, let's get a calculator out here. So what's the total? It is 678 plus 1102 plus 346 is a total of 2,126. So 678. What was it? 2126. Yeah, so that was 31% originally, and 268 divided by
11%.
12.6%. So yeah, that's where the 20 something percent is coming from, because it was 30 something before. So it went from 31.8% to 12.6%.
That's an oof, and that
is an oof.
Even if they'd come outright said, Catholicism is evil, I think the numbers wouldn't change much beyond that, because there's always a certain amount of people who will back their side no matter how clear the evidence is. We see this in flat Earth debates a lot. So I think that's about as resounding a defeat as is possible to get, realistically.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Against the motion, it's now 1,876.
Woo!
Whoa!
They gained more people
34
than the foreside had in the first place.
Yes.
Wow. It's more. That's like 7 times the number of people are against than 4 currently.
Yep.
That's madness.
That's incredible. So it picked up another 14% roughly from the undecided.
And yeah, it's like they ate all the undecideds and most of the 4s as well. That's crazy.
Well, what was the undecided originally?
And you can see that doesn't leave very many don't knows. It's 34 undecided. So commiserations, Archbishop Fernand.
It's just the people who were napping through the whole presentation.
Right. People who are asleep. Well, the undecided were originally 16.2%, right? So there's only 2% left in the undecided camp. They swallowed nearly every single undecided person. That's incredible. That is results that are insane.
It's
wow.
Yeah, with a voting body this large, that's like the U.S. Congress being unanimous on something. It just is never going to happen. Incredible.
That is an incredible swing. Yeah, that is a swing.
Oh my goodness. All right.
The against was only a third of the people that went in there supporting the Catholic Church came out supporting the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I agree, Legume. It was.
Don't forget that it didn't go from against to undecided, right? It didn't go from like people were supporting the Catholic Church and they were then unconvinced and undecided. It went straight from supporting the Catholic Church to against the proposition that the Catholic Church is a force for good.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I've definitely this hat. If I flatten it out, I get even more Guinan-y. I'm like, would you like a Romulan ale? But I like it like this because it reminds me of the Pope's hat.
Oh, come on. Whoopi was awesome in that. Like, I don't know. It's just,
Yeah, for sure. Titan says, let's face it, Anne Widdecombe, her advocacy can swing anyone away from any side.
Right. Yeah.
It's true. She does have a sort of repulsive effect, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, it's kind of like a horrible scowling Karen effect that you're like, whatever this woman is on the side of, I don't want to be on the side of. Like, seriously.
Yeah, it's a wowzers. It's a yikes. It's an oof. But it was a pretty trippy debate. It very fun. Very worth watching and things.
Absolutely. I'm so glad I've seen it again. That's awesome. And
So thanks to Robin again for pestering Mark to get it up, because it is a classic that definitely should be in the catalog.
Absolutely.
And a random reminder that all of the debates that Mark and I covered are in a playlist, debate reviews. So if you want to watch some stuff we've already done, we're coming up on a year we've been doing these. So
I know.
There's a lot of them.
Well, if the ones on my channel that are under debate dissections, which is my sort of alliteration name, because apparently I just adore alliteration for no apparent reason. So I put them under that.
It's a fun time. And for anybody who's just joining us for the first time and has made it through this whole thing, Mark and I go back and forth. Next week we'll be back on Mark's channel with a brand new, fresh debate to analyze.
Well, someone suggested Christopher Hitchens and Rabbi Shumley, so I'll look into that and see if we can swing that one if at all possible, or if I see something else that takes my fancy, I might sort of do whatever takes my fancy. But fantastic. That was a lot of fun, and I think that the results kind of speak for themselves. It's not a surprise to see, Hitchens crushes the debate. That's not news. That's entirely normal for Christopher Hitchens. But I think they really underestimated the horrendous slap that Stephen Fry gave them. I think that they really underestimated how well good a speaker he was, how logical he was, how prepared he was. I think they really underestimated also the tactics that he displayed, using their amount of followers against them. That was brilliant. He didn't quibble over the followers. He didn't say, hey, most of them are, cultural Catholics or stuff like that. He said, with this many followers, you should be doing the best job, and you're not. And you know, I think that's a brilliant tactic. Let them pontificate about how much people and how much donations are coming in. Sure, why not? Yeah.
Yeah, like show off the money. Show us what you got.
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right.
And of course,
speaking
you know,
of,
Hitchens hit them where it hurt as well. You know, the real big things that have happened hit them where they absolutely hurt, and they didn't have a response to that.
mm-hmm.
Sorry, go ahead.
They should have been prepared. No, I was just going to say, speaking of things coming up, or something like that was my segue idea. Anyway, what do you have coming up this?
Good segue. Oh, me? I
Nailed
don't
it.
know. I've got a couple of room rumbles to put up, but I've been sleeping on them for ages. So I've been really busy this weekend, so I might have a bit of a rest over the next couple of days. But I'll probably have something on my Wednesday morning for a open room. I'm not sure. The open rooms, theists seem to be very, very hesitant to actually come to my open room. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, I'll see what's coming up. On Friday, I'll have a Fundamentalist Fails. I've got one lined up about an end of the world prophecy, which should be really fun, because I always love those, you know, people that are saying, oh, the end of the world is in 2 years, but it may be 5 years or possibly 10. In 5 or 10, are you going to be saying 20? Of course they will. Of course they will. It's always, you know, it's always round the corner. You can't see it. Well
Jesus
done.
is coming
Well done.
soon.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's been great. And of course, back to it. I recently had a debate on Modern Day Debate, which I thought went really well. I kind of absolutely nailed it. And the guy I was with, Dusty, was really good as well. I was really impressed by him. Very, very good arguments. So yeah, I thought that went really well. But that's about it. Yeah. Oh, and my gaming channel. I'm also doing a gaming channel. I might just link that. I don't know if anyone's got the link, because there's only there's a few people that drop in and we have a good time. And that's just for funsies, you know, that's just basically what I'm doing all the time. Yeah. But I will link that if anyone's interested.
Yeah, for sure.
At the moment, I'm playing Elden Ring, sort of in preparation for the DLC. I have a Spartan challenge where I'm using a spear and shield. And I'm also playing Baldur's Gate 3 with Justin from the Wavelength, because we get along real well and we have a fun time. So yeah, that's all fun and games. Literally.
Yes, quite so.
I got to mention my Baldur's Gate 3 character is a gnomish, deep gnomish wizard by the name of Bulgin Britches, which I thought was just funny.
Yeah, that's pretty fantastic. Oh goodness. As for me, I've got too much going on in IRL type stuff.
Come on, run us through it. Yeah.
It's
you mean in real life? Oh,
yes.
Boy.
Weirdly,
I hate real life.
having a job has been depleting my video making time.
Yeah. But can't we just like spend our time on the internet? Like, real life sucks.
I know, like making content and shit. I'm planning some stuff for my second channel. That's coming soon-ish. You know, to TM, copyright, etc. But for this week, I've got a premiere coming up tomorrow as a lead-in to Bad Science Sunday to, you know, shove more people in my and Dr. T's direction, because it is like the best thing on YouTube. But also, you know, the premiere should be fun too. It's actually, yeah, I think Marco especially will enjoy it. But so there's that. There's the Transpositions, the new trans news show that Bree is spearheaded over on its own new channel. That's linked in the description as well. If you're not subscribed, please do, because it's a new channel and we need all the eyeballs we can get to help it grow. And that's Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. And Oh, I've got a big story coming up for this week. It took me more than a week to put together the story for this week, so do check that out if you would be so kind. And then next weekend, the debate review, debate dissection over on Mark's channel. Make sure you're subscribed there if you're not. And of course, make sure you're subscribed here if you're new and you enjoy this sort of content. I mainly do like the intersection of counter-apologetics and LGBT issues. Sometimes a little bit more counter-apologetics, sometimes a little bit more LGBT issues, but in that general region.
Depending on what the sort of rabid right-wing Christians are actually doing at the time.
Yeah, often there's quite a bit of both. I am planning a random live stream. I don't have a date set for it, but it's Sean McDowell, the apologist famous for impersonating an atheist, gave a big old talk about biblical stuff versus transgenderism, and there's so much nonsense. It's going to be a hilarious blast unpacking that nonsense. So keep an eye out for that. It'll happen at some point when I have both time and the energy to do it. So that should be fun too. And yeah, right. And cool kids join the Discord. I always forget to say that.
Not this time.
Yeah.
Not this time, memory.
Mm-hmm. And there's ways to support the channel linked in the description if you want to do that. Much appreciated. I've been bad at shilling lately.
I'm always bad at shilling. Don't feel too bad.
It's true. Really, we should do it in the beginning when people are first showing up, but I'm bad at my job. I'm the worst.
I don't know. I don't know about that, because I mean, when you first start streaming, usually it takes a while for people to know that you're streaming and actually show up, kind of thing. So
yeah, I think Maya's got the right strategy where you do it in the beginning while you're stalling for time for people to show up, and then do it at the end. So because some people will leave halfway through and new people will come in halfway through. That way you get a good array of people. But
but I can barely remember once, much less twice. Like, I mean, that just is a whole load of more expectation to remember. And I look, I'm just making excuses at this point to my faulty memory, but that's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, it happens. But also, speaking of supporting other channels, I see our friend Nitty is up to mischief over at his place, so I have instructed this stream to redirect over to that one. So if y'all stick around for a minute, you should be teleported by the magic of the YouTubes. And as always, I do appreciate everybody who came out in the beginning, who's still here now, and everything in between, for coming, for hanging out with us, for the color commentary in the live chat. It all, that's what makes live shows so great, because it's the interface, it's the interaction with the people. I freaking love it. It's my favorite thing to do. And so I appreciate y'all coming for that. It means a lot to me. But that's just about it for today. So as always, remember, you don't have to pretend something that demonstrably evil is a force for good, because you are better than religion. Good night.
Don't do that.